We're about to announce this evening the 2025 online Scotch Whisky Awards for the 5th year in a row. And as Ralphie and I are organising things behind the scenes and working out how we're going to structure things this year and how it's going to all play out on what dates and these type of things, we constantly find ourselves getting into digressions and discussions about everything that's happening in whisky, the dynamics that we're facing in whisky in real time, the things that affect us as consumers of whisky, whether casual consumers or invested enthusiasts, some might say, the things that affects everyone and everything, the things that affects the size of the outturns, the amount of festivals that there are, the things that affects the new releases, the things that affects pricing, of course. And Ralph and I are always coming back to the same thing, realizing that we are good at focusing on quality over quantity, that we are in it for the flavour rather than consumption. So rather than just go on and talk about online Scotch Whisky Awards all night, before we announce officially the 2025 awards, Ralph and I are going to have a wee head-to-head and have a chat about how sometimes less is more. I'm looking forward to it as always, and I'll see you in a second. Hello, whisky folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to another vPub. I hope you're all doing very, very well. I hope you're sitting in a comfy seat with your feet up, and maybe you're fortunate enough to have something nice in the glass as well. This has become a bit of an annual tradition, at least since Ralphie and I kicked off the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, that sometime in late summer, usually the first one or two vPubs back, Ralphie and I will have a wee bit of a head-to-head session and discuss a specific topic and then talk about the Online Scotch Whisky Awards going forward. Well, in the background, everything's cranking up. The team's being pulled together again. And when everyone's back from holiday and comfortable and things like that, in the background, the OSWAs will be officially kicked off. And lots of announcements and things will come out. But Ralphie and I have already started the process, and that means starting to reach out to the community. The first time we did that was 2024 last year, and that's going to happen again this year. And in the background, that is happening right now. In fact, towards the end of the vPub tonight, I'm going to share a link with everyone so that you can go off and hopefully start to get involved right up at the front end of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards this year. If you're joining us on the replay, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you that do pick it up on the replay. You'll find that link underneath in the description box and in the pinned comments as well. And you'll be able to go off and complete a poll and put forward all the things that you would like to see in Online Scotch Whisky Awards in 2025. We're looking for inspiration from you, of course, the knowledgeable whisky folk, but we're also looking for you to help those shy and retiring commentators, podcasters, writers, reviewers, YouTubers, whoever it is that you take whisky guidance from, whoever you trust, whoever you would like to see involved in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Use that form to put them forward in recommendation. That'll help us rather than Ralphie and I trying to work out who and how to get in touch with. And it's just so much work. It's better that we can just reach out and do a standard invitation or a blanket email, let's say, out to all the people that we potentially do not have on board so far. The way the OSWAs is structured means it's quite easy for us to do that, to add extra people in to help us refine the nominations and decide what 6 nominations are going to come out for each category. Anyway, enough of that. We'll go on to that a wee bit later. I'm going to try and keep things quite neat tonight. It's ridiculous for me to say that, isn't it? I always say that, but you can see the time this vPub is taking if you're catching this on the replay, right? And I suspect that when Ralphie and I get a chat, and if we get a good chat going on, then we just let it go. We'll just riff off each other a wee bit, have a bit of interaction with you guys in the chat. But I have a ton of housekeeping announcements to share with everyone. I really do. There's bottles coming out. There's casual meetings happening in Oslo on the 26th of September. If anybody's near Oslo, look out for that. I'm going to be in Oslo hanging out with some barflies on the 26th of September, end of this month. And then we go on to all the events that's happening in and around the Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend. The bottle announcements I'm talking about is this over my shoulder here. Look, I've got my 3 bottles. Very pleased with them too. Can't wait to share this with you. This is the Ardnahoe release. I plugged it last week, but I'll bring a bottle up and show you. Absolutely gorgeous, natural gold, bright gold colour. This is 3 fresh first fill bourbon casks in this small batch, 55% ABV, 6 years old. You can see the Aqvavitae branding and barfly on there alongside the gorgeous and really quite elegant and actually quite a strong image, this tapered bottle of Ardnahoe. The whole thing is just aesthetically wonderful, but it's the liquid inside that I'm most excited about. It's thick and oily and tropical and smoky and buttery, and it's ridiculously beyond its years. This is a 6-year age statement on this, of course. And I think it's ridiculously delicious. It hides its ABV very, very well. I don't think anybody's going to sip this and guess 55% ABV, but maybe that's just me. I'm obviously going to throw out the hyperbole and the enthusiasm for a bottle that I've been pivotal in selecting. However, it's coming out from Monday of next week. Patrons hear about it first. It goes through the tiers from Monday through Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There are 762 bottles in this outturn, so I'm hoping that finally we'll have something where there's a reasonable, a sensible amount of stock will be available after it goes through Patreon, but I'm just going to need to monitor that daily. I don't know how things are going to pan out. Fingers crossed that all goes well regardless. I'm super excited for everyone to get a hold of this and to try it. I've got a lock-in with patrons on Sunday night coming, this Sunday evening. But I think maybe in October's lock-in, or maybe there'll be a wee extra one end of September, early October, something like that. When enough people have got this in their hands and we can get together and we can have some kind of mass global kind of sip along and just get the general feedback from all of you to see what you think of the bottling as well. Anyway, enough about me and everything that's gone on with me. If you're following me on Patreon, it's going to be coming hard and fast over the course of the next few weeks, not just about the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, but about just everything that's happening in the background. It's really an exciting time in whisky right now, certainly around these parts, and I'm loving every minute of it. What I'm going to do now, though, before we go to the Wee Man in Irish Sea, is I'm going to jump into the lounge and I'm going to do what we always do and welcome in some of you beautiful whisky folk and dedicated barflies. Thanks for joining tonight. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let's see who's in. A delicious wee easy sipper. This is one I shared with you last week. Only poured a wee tablespoon of this, actually, not enough to welcome everyone in. But I shared this with you last week, and I'm very glad to have poured it again tonight. But this is a wee £36 bottle from Good Spirits Company and the Thompson Brothers. This is a North Highland blended malt Scotch, 8 years old, 48.5% ABV, I think it is. Yeah, 48.5. Lovely, bright, fresh fruit and malt forward, easy summer sipper. That's not to say it's simple and straightforward. I think you could sit with this and really enjoy bringing out some of those kind of creamy oats and things, but it's just a lovely, easy, anxiety-free sipper to kick things off tonight. Anyway, how are we all doing? Ian Williamson is in. He's saying, good evening, Roy, and looking forward to a very special vPub. Well, fingers crossed, Ian. It would be nice if we could bring something special. Let's hope so, buddy. Wonderful to have you in. Hellswood is here. Hope you're getting better all the time, Helen. Wonderful to see you in the vPub and in the lounge again. My pal Whisky with Molly Ben is here too. Ben, how are you, big guy? Thinking about you always. Good to see you in here. And Rick Johnson is here too. Rick, I picked up a message from you. I've added you to a list for the tasting in March next year. There's only a few names on that list. I'm not particularly optimistic that there's going to be a lot of cancellations, but I'll hold on to your name, buddy. I'm sorry you never made it through. He's saying cheers and a good afternoon from San Francisco, Roy. Ralph and fellow wonderful barfly friends, when we're talking OSWAs, we're talking fall weather. That's right. The OSWA seems to cover that autumnal season thing, right? It just takes us from late summer into almost the early throes of winter, Rick. The 2 months of OSWA season goes by very, very quickly, doesn't it? George Ellis saying, hello, Roy from Arizona. Good to see you, George, in Arizona. Thanks for the recycled review, recycled rewards episodes recently. Glad to be back after the summer break. You're very, very welcome, George. It's wonderful to have you back after the summer break. I hope summer was good to you. I'm getting a warning here. Why am I getting a warning? Because Ralphie's in the building, potentially. Usually he brings some technical gremlins. Let's hope that's not the case. Seb K is here from Portugal. Good to see you, buddy. Just as it jumps, sorry, Seb. There, will bring you back again. He's saying, evening all, evening Aqvavitae. Good to see you. I'm only here for the Ardnahoe, says Ben, Whisky with Molly. Only a couple more days to wait, big guys. A few more days. Alistair McPhail saying, good evening, good morning, afternoon, everyone, and Roy. Wonderful to have you, and Alistair. Good to see you. Canpie Planet is in. Mac, can I just give Mac a shout out for Sugar Kitty? You're wonderful at sharing links. If anybody can grab the latest video from Canpie Planet's YouTube channel, I need to put this on Ralphie's radar as well, where it's almost like this moment where Mac is just ripping off his jacket and saying, I've had enough. But it's got his usual kind of decorum, erudite politeness and accessibility. And he's not just ranting, he's justifying and he's giving reasons for his feelings on all of these things surrounding transparency, surrounding honesty, integrity, all of these things around where he sees it from, specifically around the Japanese whiskey scene. There's a lot of things that he mentions in that video that is completely focused on Japanese whiskey, but there's a lot of it that you can copy and paste to other places in whiskey that we're seeing now as well. What it said to me when I was watching that video is just how far we've come in whiskey and in consumerism generally, that consumers can step up and feed back how we're feeling about things, about frustration and things like that. Now, it might be that we get a lot of things right and a few things wrong, all of these things, but what it's screaming for is more openness, transparency, more understanding. It's far too much happening where the companies are very happy to take your money, sometimes absurd amounts of money, and not really tell you the full story behind it. Hats off to you, Mac. The video was an absolute banger, succinct, to the point. I could watch it again and again. It's evergreen content, and I think it's just a fantastic thing for all of us in Whisky Tube. Well done, fella. Michael Wood is saying, no provoking Ralphie, Roy. I'll do my very, very best, but I think we like it when we get Ralphie provoked from time to time. Ralphie will keep it erudite and on point and polite as well tonight, no doubt. Gene Kelly saying, hi there, Roy. So glad it's Thursday again. Looks like you've strapped in and are ready to hurtle down the whiskey highway. Lots going on. Gene, there is so much going on, fella. There is so much going on. You need to stay close, stay tuned. It's going to be fun times in the months ahead. Papa Q saying, welcome back, Roy. Rob Brackler 12, sherry in the glass, and he's got some Roddy emojis lined up there. So I know who Papa Q is drinking, raising a glass towards tonight, or pal, Roddy Graham. Stevie O is saying, chuffed to be here with all these handsome barflies. Speak for yourself, Stevie O. You're hogging all the handsome down there. Looking forward to your holiday. I know that you're away this weekend, buddy. I hope it goes really, really well for you and Bobby. Hellswood is saying, sounds fab. I think Bobby is Roddy's wife's name as well. It's half as good as the dram we had at the Belfry. We're on to a winner. I think that we're 9-year-old a winner. The one I shared at the Belfry was 5 years old. And I should have dared to suggest that we might have exceeded the one that we shared at the Belfry. I've got none of it left. We can't ever prove it, I suppose, but I feel like we might have. Fernando saying, hello, evening, Roy, and dear Barflies. Happy to be joining you once again. It's fantastic to have you in, Fernando. Superb to have you here. I'm getting a wee warning coming up every now and again. I think it's just maybe with the chat window rolling. Maybe it is because Ralphie's in the background. Gordon Burniston's here. Gordon, good to see you, fella. Thick, oily, buttery, tropical and smoky. Sounds delightful. I'll be held to account on every one of those as well, Gordon. Adrian H is saying, evening, Roy. Don't ask Ralphie about the mystery malts. Fair to say he didn't like the concept. I think he would be in, I don't want to say he's in the other thing that's wonderful about what we have going in Whisky Tube and the online whisky community in general is that it's okay to not agree. There are a few spaces left in the world, right, where we can actually not physically not agree on something tangible, right? Something that we feel could be objective even, and we just don't agree, and we move on to the next thing that we do agree on. That needs to be preserved in whiskey. Adrian H is saying, oh, sorry, I got that, Adrian. That was the one and now it's jumped. That was the one I just read out, fella. Ginger Genius John is here. Good to see you, buddy. Saying good evening, Roy Ralfy and all the barflies. Good to have you in, John. Fantastic to have you here this evening. Drew from Arizona is here too. Tom Freeney is saying, evening, Aqvavitae. Looking forward to the Ardnahoe and the OSWAs. Just a fleeting visit tonight. I've got an early start tomorrow. Catch you and all the barflies on the replay. And again on Sunday. Look forward to seeing you there on Sunday night, Tom. And if you're back here on the replay, my friend, it's nice to welcome you back. Hope you're comfortable. Scott Mathis is saying, I say provoke, Ralphie. Well, let's get on with that, Scott. Let's see what happens. As I say, it's become a wee bit of a tradition. Ralphie and I are quite happy leaving each other in peace and just kind of checking in with each other now and again and just kind of letting things go quiet when it's non-OSWA season. But something starts to happen, you know, after we've done the debrief and shut everything up and locked it away after the OSWAs for the previous session. As we build towards the OSWAs happening, we usually have a few meetings in springtime, that kind of thing, and leave it for summer. And after summer, we come back and everything just starts to come alive and get switched on again. And we realize we can start to visualize the shape of it, how it's going to play out, how we're going to kind of tighten and tweak and polish and adjust things, and then just press go. This year, the same team is behind me again. So we've got Chuck over in the States looking after the socials, and Rob Halford in the background going to be helping me with the grunt and the heavy lifting and things like that. Rob always does a fantastic job of running support for me. But that's it. That's what the OSWAs run on. We are usually, Ralph and I give Chuck and Rob a wee donation just to say thank you. You can imagine what that donation is like. But generally, the OSWAs they're not funded. There's no monetary way. And there's nothing in place right now to monetize the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. It's funded fully by myself and Ralphie. So you know where that money's coming from Patreon, from your Patreon support. And we're quite happy for that to be the case going forward. We now enter our 5th year of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. And now more than ever, Ralphie and I are realizing that if we do it properly, if we can do the Online Scotch Whisky Awards justice, they're yet another metric, another guidance point, another beacon of positivity for people who want to enjoy whiskey for flavor's sake, good quality whiskey, to be consumed responsibly, slowly, contemplation, all of the wonderful things that we get out of whiskey. And we're realizing with all of those themes, and you can add in other themes onto the back of that, like sustainability and, you know, prudence and all of these things, we realize that less is more, quality over quantity. That was the obvious theme of Ralphie and I's discussions over this summer and run up to the OSWAs, and that's what I'm going to invite him forward to chat about tonight. So reach out to Ralphie. He's sitting there. I can see him tuned in. A wee thumbs up if he's ready to come in. Oh, he is. He's ready to come in. And welcome the man in the Irish Sea. Hello, fella. Welcome to the vPub again. Looking for
Roy,
green.
Your technical gremlin has arrived. Yes. And at the moment, I'm being polite.
Aye. Well, let's see how long we can keep that going. But no, I think you're always polite, Ralphie. But I think sometimes you like to just riff a little bit, and there's lots of space for that to happen in the vPub tonight. Can I start, before we get into all the stuff, I'm just going to raise a wee glass to you, fella, because something dawned on me recently, and it was, I believe, September 2009 that Ralphie first appeared on the YouTubes. Would that be correct?
No. February 2009.
February 2009.
February
do apologise. I do apologise.
I'm finding it quite entertaining, and the Pat Pals and the Barflies are having a good laugh. Because
that means,
you know what, if that was a question in the quiz tonight, you would be stunk, just stunk.
No, it might be that I'm thinking that the quiz at the end tonight might end up being a bit of a challenging quiz at the end. So I might try to remember the questions, and I'll make a mess of it and sprinkle little clues in throughout tonight to give everybody a chance of a better go. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is that it seems like just last year you were celebrating 10 years, right? But that was back in 2019.
Yeah, it was.
So now you're 16 and a half years of content out there on YouTube.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it earlier today. I can't think, let's forget about whiskey channels, okay? We've got the guys in Germany, obviously, Ben and Horst. They've been going for a similar time as well. They're obviously coming at it from a commercial side, a retail background.
But at the same time, all credit to Ben, his documentaries and his use of drones to let us get an insight into distilleries that we would never visit. Ben's done a fantastic job there. And all the whiskey contributors, however the style of the contribution, I think the Scotch whiskey industry in particular is very lucky to have the caliber of people that it does. Sure, once in a very occasionally, someone will come along and there'll be some inappropriate content. However, that's as regulated now by the audience as it is by the actual algorithm of the YouTube system. And I'd say that compared to, say, the fitness industry and the finance industry commentators, who are much more hand in glove and financially reliant on those industries, there's lawsuits flying.
I think that we've all done it. It's great that you bring that up. We've all done a good job of recognizing how special the whiskey space is, and all the channels have, even the ones that are a little bit more edgy. I think that all the channels have come forward to try and preserve that a little bit. And you're absolutely right about the community. It's almost self-cleaning. And when there's something that's a bit off color, a bit inappropriate, putting booze before the content or whatever it may be, I think it gets caught. It gets called out quite early on. And I hope that continues to be the case. But we're all responsible for it. We're all part of it.
Yeah, but what's the fashion about 12 years ago now, about 2010, 2011, of people, idiots, recording themselves necking a whole bottle of vodka, whiskey, rum, whatever, or claiming they were, with added shock value. Quite probably it wasn't, because importantly, they had to be seen to be doing it. So even if they were faking it, which they probably were, it was completely and totally inappropriate content. But it took a little while for the online police actually regulate that, and first and foremost to demonetize it, because that's the best incentive to stop that nonsense. But we're now at the stage of a wonderful maturation and a good quality of consistency right across the genre, where people who want to learn about whiskey have access to experience and information, anecdotes and advice, which is absolutely unprecedented historically, where in the old days they were relying on experts and on books, which very useful, many very good books out there. However, what people really want, if you were to kind of analyze it to the actual living flame, the essence of online content, Roy, people want reliable advice to learn and develop their own palates and buy good stuff at reasonable prices.
And I think they also enjoy, and I certainly enjoy, the fact that in here we've got 457 people watching right now. Every one of them has got a formed opinion, an informed opinion, a knowledgeable opinion that can actually feed back into the whole thing and help. And it becomes the word, you used a couple of R words there. I was waiting on you saying relatable. Because we are just consumers. We are just punters. We are just customers. We are just buyers of the thing. So we are sharing it from our perspective. I think it's valuable. And I think it has been interesting to see the quality, especially on YouTube, I would say, the production. I'm not speaking about here. not speaking about the vPub. It's still a bit. It could do with some improvement, but generally,
Right,
some of the channels out there are fantastic with the quality, and that makes it very, very easy to enjoy and consume because it's not distracting. The audio is clear, nice crisp pictures, that type of thing. But anyway, I say all that to congratulate you, fella. Well done. I don't think there's any genres out there, whiskey and otherwise, that could have somebody commenting and being as stoic as they have been for 16 and a half years. I talk regularly to people about what you've contributed towards whiskey over the years. Mm-hmm. You're going to turn up here anyway. I'm not saying this just to be, I try to be nice and recognize everybody that steps forward and talk about what they've achieved. But what you've achieved in accessibility for bringing people into whiskey, for getting people interested in the intricacies of whiskey, the slow contemplative consumption of whiskey.
Yeah.
And beyond that, traveling to Scotland and traveling to places in Scotland and things, I think is really to be celebrated. Anyway,
before you get Roy, and I haven't been sued yet.
Yet, don't say it. Don't say it.
Let me tell you why. It's worth articulating it. One, I buy what I review, which is 99.9% now. I think there's about 3 bottles historically in my channel that I was actually gifted. But when I opened it, because it hadn't actually come from distilleries, I thought it's come from friends, it's come from people who were basically real, proper, genuine fans, and it was transparently so. So they were actually really good, and I thought it worth mentioning them. But when you buy what you review, and you make it absolutely clear in the description box under the video that it is a personal opinion, and that's what it is. And so long as you it gives you the leverage and a certain amount of leeway to be honest within reason, that you're not going to become slanderous, libelous, or just plain nasty about it. Sure, there's the rants now and again, Roy, but everybody would agree that rants, when we look at some of these bottlings, the quality and the price and the disingenuous flannel that is manufactured by people who do not appear to know much about whiskey, it's very well deserved. And everybody can relate, including you and I, to the profound disappointment. And it's happened, it still happens now and again, of when we buy a bottle, we're spending our money on which we're paying tax, and then we open the bottle, we taste it once, we taste it twice, we taste it a third time, and we're still not enjoying it. And because of the experience that we've gained, we know why we're not enjoying it. And we're thinking to ourselves, that producer should be treating us with more care and more respect with the caliber and consistency of what they're bottling, and they better know it.
They're allowed to bottle what they like, at what strength they like, and whatever concept that they like. They're allowed to set up their business as they like. They're allowed to look after whatever they want to look after, whether it's their customers, their shareholders, their family business, whatever it might be. But we are also allowed to buy those products and do what we like. And talk about things that we do like and talk about things that we like less. Arnie Doodle Drama saying, happy to report I did make my mind up and formed my informed opinion about you. Not bad at all. Thank you for judging from afar, but I'm most grateful that you've arrived on a decent opinion. Good to see you, Arnie. And Jimmy Legg has bought us a dram, Ralphie, to say sorry about all of the off-colour stuff, Roy. I'm sure that Jimmy Legg is only mildly responsible for some of it. Justin Wan, Jesse Artinsalo, Stevie O, and Billy Bennett are all celebrating being Aqvavitae Barflies, members of the channel, and keeping it all ad-free. Ralphie, what's in your glass, fella? You've got something there with a wee bit of Scotch mist. It's pale. It's very, very Isla in colour, I would say. Would it be?
Yes. Yeah. I tell you what, all credit, Roy. I think your malt forensics are on point. Of course, not perfect. I did a recent part of my own conversation in my own channel recently has been discussing with pals, Patreon subscribers, what I tend to have in my archive. So there's the stash. Now, we all have a stash, Roy, even a person that's just gone out to buy a bottle for the first time, they've got a stash, an open stash of one.
Yeah.
Stash means to stash, to collect, to focus, to put in a secure place to which you have exclusive access, something of value. And
stash, aye.
Stash, yeah. So we've got the open bottled stash. We've got the yet to be opened bottles. So we've got sealed bottle stash.
We do.
But there's a third category, and this happens over time, and it's called the archived library stash. And this is the whiskies that we're in no hurry to drink because we've got more experience in understanding what oxidization of whiskey is, and not to be frightened of it, because historically, the real problem with oxidization of whiskey was mainly of really, really old, fragile whiskies, where the cask had basically got really kind of fatigued, and the whiskey would be decanted into a decanter, which wasn't quite rinsed properly. And then it would be swirled about, occasionally shaken. It would be poured frequently. And then after a few months, particularly when it's been left in a window, on a windowsill, the flavour of the whiskey would start to fade. Now, this suits the industry down to a T. Call me cynical, but if people think that their whiskey's not going to last too long due to oxidization, what are they going to do? They're going to drink it more quickly.
Yeah.
Then another bottle gets sold. But it's a more of a conversation now as people, as the actual habit of the whiskey enthusiast. This didn't even exist historically. When we go back to, say, I mean, I remember the 1980s. You probably weren't quite there yourself, you know.
Oh no, I was a teenager in the 80s.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Well, I was up and working in Glasgow in the 1980s, and I'd go into my local pub, and whiskey was absolutely not a thing. But they had a bottle of Bunnahabhain 12-year-old, the kind of Westering home label, the old one.
I remember it. Green glass.
Green glass bottle, yes.
40% ABV.
40% ABV, chill filtered within its life. But of course, we don't notice that. It's not a feature because our palates are still relatively naive. In fact, they're very naive. Our palates are as green as the Bunnahabhain bottle. And the result is that we just think, well, I'm sipping it. I'm not adding ice. I've added a drop of water from the jug off the bar. And all of a sudden, people are staring at you going, what's he playing at there? What's he up to? Surely he's asked for his malt in a wine glass. What's going on here? But I was fortunate in that in the bar I was in Partick, right?
Yep.
I loved living in Partick.
I've read your books, fella. I know the story. Yep. Yes. Partick.
So I was in the Smithy, and it was just basically one of these just really old school local pubs with the etched acid windows, very Victorian, lovely. And folk from the whiskey industry were going into that pub. People that were cleaning up at the offices for Macallan, for Edrington, people who were driving whiskey lorries, and of course, a cooper, a grumpy old cooper. And this is when I really quite completely by accident started to go on this very surreal journey, actually, when you look back on it. Because the idea then in the 1980s that someone, just an ordinary malt enthusiast, would have several hundred bottles at the end of the day of whiskey opened with no hurry to finish them off, knowing that they've got a timeline through their own lives of yesterday's malts and yesteryear's malts. And this is one of them, Roy. And this is old.
I thought for a second you were going to say Bunnahabhain 12-year. It's too pale for that.
Far too pale for that.
Given the colour of that Arran 10, and I think I've got one that's almost just in reach, which is going to be significantly darker than yours, Ralphie.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the, one of the very first Arran 10-year-olds that came out in that livery.
You and I remember, because this delivery now is very different. Very different. But But essentially, you can see the relationship between the two. The modern 10, slightly more honey, darker colour, because fresher casks.
More first fill casks, more active
casks. The original 10, and this is when we get into malt forensics and the amount of whiskey enthusiasts who know something's different but can't quite articulate it, Roy. But what it is it's the phenomenal capacity of the brain to archive what we've previously experienced and know that it's changed slightly, but the quality remains as good. And this along with the 14-year-old. And for those who were real Arran enthusiasts at the beginning, you had the peacock bottling, which became a sudden little classic. And that was at the very early days when suddenly the price of whiskey was rocketing, because whiskey enthusiasts were saying, well, I'm hearing so much about this, I want to try it. Do you remember that?
And it was probably the quickening of the internet and online where word was spreading a little bit faster as well.
The internet has been a huge game changer. And it surprises me now, Roy, that actual distilleries don't make more of their own personal websites. They're all too samey. Pretty pictures, drop scroll boxes, and they tell you a little about the history, but they don't really, there's nothing really exciting there that their competitors don't have. Now, I don't know if this is a mutual agreement that nobody's going to get too eccentric with their content, but it is such an avenue of communication. I think one reason you and I and all the other YouTube and blog contributors have gained the sort of traction we have in this very, very refined, eccentric space is because the industry collectively has been too conservative, really, for its own good.
I think you're spot on. I think it's a lot of it is, it's not just the look of a website. Mm-hmm. I think it's the manner in which a lot of companies interact, a manner in how a lot of companies will, rather than almost try to initiate a discussion or conversation, what they do is just download. They just broadcast. They just present to you, present, and everything becomes very, very formulaic, becomes a little bit soulless, becomes more and more beautiful, more and more professional and sharp and gorgeous to look at. And yet every gradient of becoming more pretty, it feels a little bit more distant from us, because that's not real. We don't look at our bottles in these environments and see this gorgeous, these pretty scenes and these beautiful backdrops and these we don't. We see fingerprints on the bottles, and we see them kind of stashed higgledy-piggledy together and all of that stuff. And I'm not suggesting that the content should be like that, but I think the more professional, the more formulaic, the more marketing-driven rather than product-driven these content outlets are, I think the more distant it can seem. It's just maybe me. It's just maybe the way I feel. But I suspect
you're making a good point. But they have to be content-driven or brand-driven, because that's what they're there to represent. But it's the way they do it, Roy. And I must commend Ardna Murkin, for example, with their use of social media.
Yeah. You know, there is other ways of doing it. Yeah, absolutely.
There's other ways of doing it. There is I wouldn't say in so much inventive, but there's just spontaneous, transparent, genuine ways that are not overly rehearsed. And I think that Ardna Murkin are doing a great job there, and they're getting comfortable with their theme as well. So when you add it all together, you look at some other distilleries, and unfortunately, you're just wondering, well, what are they actually doing with their time? But that is, we can take these more refined opinions the longer we spend overviewing the Scotch whisky industry, because it provides our content. But so long as we focus on the bottlings, so long as we make it absolutely clear to ourselves and to our followers, even at the risk of repetition, Roy, and it does happen, I'm guilty of it all the time, the reason for non-chill filtered, the value of the Scotch mist, not just in the enhancement of the sensory experience, which is our primary investment, smell and taste, but the actual
Ralphie, we'll get tired of the repetition. It'll become redundant when it doesn't happen anymore. The repetition will then become redundant. But right now, it's release after release after release. You're looking at it going, how could they have got this so wrong? How could they have come so close in improving this thing? All the cask investment, all the capacity increases, all the steps that they've put in place, and then it gets to the point of bottling, and they just it's incredible to me. Beam Suntory and Bowmore, one of the biggest in Auchentoshan. Lefroy's a bit better. Glengarry's hopefully going to get better. But you're just looking at that going, how does this? How can they get it so wrong? And it's so much to do with that formulaic. I use that F word again. That way of just diluting. Oh, we've diluted it. We've lost flavour. We've lost texture. And we've lost colour. Oh, okay. Well, let's top up some colour. Let's emulsify this thing.
Yes.
It's just it's in Bowmore. The modern day Bowmore is a shadow of the legend it once was.
Absolutely.
And you and I know that it's not Ralfy and Roy and the people that tune in to Ralfy and Roy that's saying that. That's industry people stepping forward and saying, I'm mortified about Bowmore. Mortified. Somebody is responsible for that.
But here's the rub, Roy.
It's because we love it. It's because we love it, right?
Yeah, and because we care. And this has been a major stepping stone for the establishment of a new generation of small distilleries and independent bottlers, because they're catering for us through transparency of declaration, because they know the educated, experienced whiskey fan fully understands that when caramel E150A is added to a whiskey, it's probably because they never got the natural colour from the cask during maturation, because it was just a stale old cask.
And you and I know, and the industry knows, and every retailer, every on-seller, everybody out there knows that dark whiskey, it perpetuates the myth that dark whiskey is better and it's easier to sell.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to make dark whiskey. Oh, you want dark whiskey? No problem. Scoosh a caramel colour in there, the job's done.
Yeah. And it has worked. Sure, it has worked for them. But I'm kind of mindful that I don't want to condemn it too much. I just want to avoid these bottlings more than I used to do, because they make for more depressing reviews.
And that archive that you talk about, that accumulation library archive, it becomes full of stuff that you never want to touch.
Precisely.
Rather than things that you're precious about, right? And
and so we're looking at the new distilleries and the fact that some of them are going that extra mile, and they're gaining the attention, the traction, the appreciation, and the sales, because they can show us that when they're using worm tubs, right, for cooling, when they've got slower fermentations in wooden washbacks, in isolation on its own, Roy, it makes a little bit of a difference. But then when you consecutively up these small differences, the result is a substantial difference. And this is why I think Springbank continues to hold such a special place in people's hearts. And fortunately, because the post-pandemic lockdown whiskey bubble has really burst as we go in towards a major global recession, as things start to get really tough, and as we are frequently getting bad news being released publicly from distilleries who had high hopes and great expectations, and then suddenly discovering people aren't blowing their money out the window just as much as they used to.
I think it's crazy, because even if we take the pandemic out of it, I think that there would have been a natural attenuation to that, Ralphie, because on theme with tonight, when we talk about less is more, quality over quantity, and all of these things, this isn't a mantra about whiskey. This isn't Roy and Ralphie. This isn't Whiskey Tuber. This is life. People are learning how to have more thoughtful, contemplative lifestyles, thinking about sustainability, thinking about consumption, thinking about consumerism, thinking about all of these things. So when they are spending their money, they're looking for guides where that money is going to feel like much more of an investment in what it is to be alive, rather than just consuming something to toss away again.
Yeah. And it's the intensity of disappointment, the intensity being, once
we've all felt it. We've all felt it.
We've all felt it. And it comes with the experience of saying, do you know, back in the day, a 12-year-old Glenfiddich was fine. And I can still enjoy it if I'm out for a social or a wedding and I'm too busy socializing or having a laugh to bother much about the whiskey. It's what it's designed for, and it works really, really well. But when we're spending more money and we're seeing that the results of a considerable amount of skill and hard work that goes into making whiskey, the people that roll their sleeves up and scrub out a wash bag, right? That's hard graft. The people who are basically doing the sweeping the floors, making the stuff, rolling and pushing and rearranging casks and warehouses with a forklift, which is a little bit sort of in need of maintenance. This is real life here. And it's taking that, the result of that, and actually when we get a good one, an honest whiskey, simple packaging, no pretension, no flannel, no fuss, and there's a simple message attached with it. And the independent bottlers are really good at this. They are really good at displaying and delivering the singularity of the single cask of the single malt. And we're ready for that because our palates are prepared. I'm on to my second dram. I don't even know about your first dram, Roy. What have you got in your glass?
Well, I wanted to pick you up on the independent bottlers thing there, but I've mentioned that it's a good spirits company, North Highland 8-year-old, £36.50, Ralphie. 8 years old, 48.5% ABV. It's bottled in collaboration with the Thompson brothers, so there's a wee hint on the back there as to where this North Highland might be from. A wee teaspoon there too. Obviously, it's a blended malt. But if I pick you up on independent bottlers there, consider where whiskey was in the 60s when Glenfiddich first brought their product out, followed by a lot of other single malt brands that realised that if they had the depth of stock and the wherewithal and the will, they could sell and cannibalise perhaps some of that blend market. But it went out there at 40% ABV, of course, the exact same presentation that the blends always went out there at. But it was the mavericks, it was the people, the Cadenheads of the planet. Certainly in the early 1980s, SMWS with single cask strength stuff that the industry was absolutely certain nobody would want to drink. They were the trailblazers back then. I'm going to take this comment here from Mike up at Inverurie Whiskey Shop. Nice to see you in, Mike. He's saying Aqvavitae, just plain devil's advocate. It's easy as a whiskey lover, but conglomerates are not daft. They may get it wrong in our eyes, but the higher percent of whiskey buyers don't care about chill filtration, E158, etc. You've hit the nail on the head, Mike. You've absolutely spot on. However, there are enough of a percentage, it doesn't matter if it's a sliver of us, that do care. And then a sliver of that sliver step up to take action and campaign and talk about. And it's easy for us to do this, not from a position of being obtuse or confrontational, but from a position of passion and love for the product, because we have been shown somebody has given us with a guiding hand, somebody has shown us that it can be different. And then that number of people starts to swell and more awareness comes and people say, what do you mean whiskey's coloured? That sounds like nonsense to me. No, whiskey is, it's a big, when that story breaks globally, it's a big story, Ralphie, because whiskey is one of the few products on the planet that they colour it, sometimes very heavily, and they don't need to declare that they've put in an E150A additive. They don't need to put that on the label. That's still in 2025, that is abhorrent to me. That's shocking.
It is shocking. Only in Germany, where they have legitimate standards of disclosure. And I would add to that it's a very valid comment that out there in the real world, a lot of consumers are passive consumers who are looking for brand association to see in the new year, our granddad's having a birthday. But I tell you what, see during major recessions, they're not buying whiskey at all. They are really not. The amount of pubs where people used to drink whiskey that are closing, and it's not just in the UK, it's globally. Pub culture is reducing. It's becoming more niche, more specialist, and it's more focused now on providing a quality experience, which is either maintaining a tradition or reinventing it. But for it's valid to say that, sure, if every corporation was making whiskey without E150, and if they were just not chill filtering, they'd probably drive away some of the passive consumers who got flavour shock. So they're engineering their whiskey down. It's not just the chill filtration. They're making it manageable, accessible, and palatable by people who have been spending most of their life eating crunchy nut cornflakes for breakfast.
I know, and it'd be easy to digress into all of those,
but
potential wee side streets. But for everybody in my experience, for everyone that experiences flavour shock, someone else experiences an epiphany.
Yes.
Of flavour. And I know you've talked about this, and I remember you talking about this long before I had a channel. You talked about our ability to accommodate much more bold and challenging and robust flavour experiences. I remember you using examples of coffee over the years, spicy foods, really quite exotic foods and things that our modern palate is much more open to and accustomed to. And through doing that, we become much more discerning when it comes to flavour.
Yes.
We become much more discerning about not just a width of flavour spectrum, but a depth and a richness. And we can talk about lots of other axes as well, where we talk about we can talk about the texture and the mouthfeel and all of these things that play into it. And suddenly, whether we've learned it through cuisine, whether we've learned it through enjoying coffee, whether we've learned it through enjoying wine, we come to whiskey with a whole open-minded readiness. I think for a lot of people coming into whiskey, looking for a special experience.
And when we do so, Roy, we confirm and validate Scotch whisky's reputation globally as a premium luxury product, because it can be.
Would you agree with my statement? 99% of the whiskey out there, whether it's made in a big factory, one of the big malt complexes, 99% of the Scotch malt whiskey that's made today is made very, very well, to within very tight, consistent tolerances, to a very, very good minimum quality of flavour. But often the product that, once that whiskey reaches maturity and it's ready to go into bottle, something happens, some kind of disconnect happens. And that's where we seem to destroy the potential of quality at the point of product development and bottling, would you say? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Roy, but to the passive consumer, the occasional buyer, the people who are buying at travel retail, buying in supermarkets because they're scanning the shelf to see which has got the £20 discount with your club card, right? They're not bothered. The chill filtration means nothing to them. These are the same folk that they'll buy the whiskey as a present for someone else while looking at the sours that is being advertised, that as soon as you add lemonade, it'll turn, the colour will turn, right? Or maybe it's a bottle of vodka that's wrapped in gold plastic. Or maybe it's the bottle of Prosecco with the little bunny rabbit hanging in a wee chain with a little red heart around it. The passive consumer, and this sounds terribly snobby, but I'll say it anyway. The passive consumer is an indifferent to their consumption because they just want to scratch the itch, and it's a human compulsion. We all have it to a certain extent, but you and I and many folk who are prepared to invest, whether it be collecting old watches, buying bottles of Scotch whisky, or going on a journey with rum, perhaps, or wind-up clocks. We just have such a fuller, more meaningful experience, which enriches the meaning and substance of our very lives.
We're privileged to have spare time. We're occasionally privileged to have disposable income. And we're privileged to have curious minds, and that ends up being what you're talking about there.
And all we ask in return is that we're not looking for cheap whiskey. We're looking for good value whiskey, simple bottling, intelligent labeling, giving us disclosure, and we're buying.
Like those independent bottlers that came along back in the day. Yes, the SMWSs of the world in the early 80s. I think that they proved that there was a market out there. There was an appetite for that. Case in point, Michael Woods just pointed out Roy Ralfy. Would any of us whiskey enthusiasts be enthusiasts if we only had industrial/commercial whiskey as our choice? I think no, we would find something more interesting than whiskey. Absolutely spot on. Yeah. But I think there's no coincidence that the boom in whiskey appreciation, chasing whiskey for flavor rather than its effect as an ethanol delivery mechanism, it's no coincidence that that coincided with a lot of investment and sudden availability. Interestingly, from very few official sources, but lots and lots of independent sources 50 years ago. And we are spoiled rotten today. One of the problems that we have today, Ralphie, that you and I talk about regularly, is variety, the sheer weight of choice that's on our shoulders. It's almost, when I started in whiskey in 2005, it was already intimidating to go into a specialist back then. I think it's double more so now because there's much, much more independent bottlings on the shelf. The ratio of independent bottlings is much higher. Yeah. That's a concept in itself that needs explained, that needs a bit of guidance involved. Why is there a liquid direct from Diageo here and a liquid from two other producers? What is that? Why is that? Does that exist? Yeah. It's not a difficult concept to explain, but to a casual, somebody that's maybe not willing to invest, it could be. I think that's why it's the online community coming on board where it is, all the outlets that we have to guide people. You can Google virtually any bottle, and it's very rare to find nobody commenting about it online. Whiskey Base is a fabulous, fabulous catalogue and resource, right? And if Whiskey Base doesn't have it, wait a wee while, and it will eventually appear there. So we do have the ability to overcome that sheer fright of variety and choice today, but it does take a wee bit of investment, Ralphie.
That's cool.
As you've quite rightly said, nobody's expecting cheap. Nobody's expecting free. We are willing to play fair. Yeah. We are willing to pay the right amount for good value for fairly priced, integrity forward stuff. Yeah. Because you know what? We've already spent a fortune studying. We've burned our time, our valuable time, looking into this stuff. We're ready. We're willing. We want some of this good, positive experience.
And along the way, Roy, we meet new people, we make new friends, and it becomes a unique journey in its own right and very cosmopolitan. And you learn about the challenges. For you and I, we're in the British Isles. You're in Scotland. I'm in the Isle of Man. The availability of relatively obscure independent bottlings to us is just phenomenal. And also we have the connections that we can learn very quickly about what's exciting that's being bottled. So we can buy a bottle and then we've got something exciting to talk about. If we're in Australia, right, or New Zealand, or worst of all, Tasmania, for some weird reason, the good people out there, they don't have such a lot of choice. The choice can really be quite restricted to some of the main proprietary brands. And in a sense, I feel for them, because there is some very competent Australian and New Zealand whiskey, but again, the cost of access to these is substantial.
Well, I think it's I talk to my friends and it's an interesting thing how all these topics are mashed together. If we talk about that kind of pub culture thing, and Mike from Inverurie Whiskey Shop talking about the decay of the pub and things like that. Listen, we've got 1 million channels, 20 different on-demand services on our TVs now. We've got so many distractions to keep ourselves tucked up in the house right now, and pubs are in decay. We do have to make deliberate choices and things to go back out. I still love going out to the pubs. I still love going out and meeting people, but I have to be honest, Mike, Ralphie, when I go out to the pub today, do you know who I'm meeting? This is the weird irony of it. I'm meeting people from our community, the whiskey folk, the online folk. Yeah. So it's this kind of weird thing about how they've suddenly, like radio and video and gas and electricity and all of these things, learning how to coexist. One doesn't replace the other. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I look to me where I am, just speaking personally, in my mid-50s and since my mid-40s, the amount of friends that I have today versus if I hadn't stepped forward for this so-called virtual existence, there's nothing virtual about it. Everybody is very, very real. You know, I wouldn't have all of these friends. I wouldn't have these people that I could go to the pub with. I think I would be much more isolated. So you talk about these people, the friends I'm talking about, some of them are in far-flung places like New Zealand and Australia, and you hear from them that their local distilleries, it's not that they've cannibalized, it's they have stepped in and taken care of the selection that means it's harder for Scotch to break through now, I think. Even if they could, even if taxes weren't an issue and the pricing wasn't an issue. The problem is that the prices are still artificially, I think a lot of my people following from there too also think they're artificially kept high. Maybe there's an argument they don't have the infrastructure that Scotch whisky has in such a small place. Australia's massive, right? And all of these things play into it.
Yeah.
But how crazy is it that you and I would even know that? The only reason that we can pick up on this and know this is because of this space and the knowledge that they are willing to feed back to us, almost like a discussion over a bar, over a pub table, over that type of thing. But here's to supporting your local pub. Get out there when you can.
Absolutely.
It's not easy for everyone.
So what will the landscape look like in 10 years' time, Roy? Put on your future vision goggles to 2035. What will the whiskey scene be like globally?
Will we be able to afford it? Yeah. Will we be able to?
The first thing you're mentioning is money. I mean that's quite astute actually, because
I think you might have picked up the theme of the vPub last week. I know that you've picked up on the dynamic because you and I talk about it a lot, about how the prices are tumbling in so many areas, right? The days of just being able to put on any old arbitrary price you like on your bottle and there's a good chance that it would succeed and sell, it's gone, right? There's the whiskey is not shifting, it's not selling, and that's for multiple reasons. The reasons that you touch upon, that people maybe they're being a bit more careful. The future isn't as optimistic as it once was. They're holding on to their money a bit more. Recession is always kind of we feel like it's significant recessions are just on the horizon. But it's also got a lot to do with the fact that we are consuming less, the theme of tonight. And we've also been consuming, especially over the pandemic years, as we all know. So when it comes to whiskey specifically, we're sitting on quite a cushy amount of variety at home.
Yeah.
So I think that in 2035, you and I are doing the OSWAs every year, Ralphie, and we are not seeing massive changes one year to the next. The OSWAs are mapping out a gradual shift in whiskey over the years. You would have to step back 3, 4, 5 years to see a significant shift.
Mm-hmm.
But what's happening is that whiskey's got this slow kind of wax and wane, this kind of swell and tumble, and I think that I don't know what 2035 will look like, but on the route to get to 2035, we're going to need to see much fairer pricing, much more realistic products, a lot less naivety in the products, a lot less silliness, things that are easily called out and easily discovered. Because that whiskey is accumulating and it's sitting there. And do you know what's happening now? Things that were not really designed to be opened and tasted are suddenly dropping in value. And they are now being opened and tasted. And they're being discovered that they were never as good as they were promised to be in the first place.
Yes.
Maybe not the stuff that you and I are raving about and enthusing about. But there is a reason that there are multiple brands, high-profile brands, and I could list them, but we're not going to go there tonight. But we could list them tonight. Let's do it. Let's do it. The Dalmores, the Macallans, the Highland Parks, the Glengoynes. I'm gutted to say, to add to that pile. There are too many brands that have just been wiped off the face of my content and your content because of cynicism, because of bang average quality, the quality not keeping up with the price that they're demanding.
Mm-hmm. But you and I were never their customers.
Well, we were at one point in time. Very recently, Ralphie, I enjoyed a very, very interesting video of you, and I'm not going to mention any more about it because it might appear in the quiz at the end tonight. Sitting, enjoying, and raving about. I'll be honest with you, it was a vintage expression of a Lagavulin Distillers edition.
Yeah.
And that was something that was very close to my heart. It's a video that I remember when it first came out.
Yeah.
Because of how much I loved about it at that time. It was an even it would have been a 1990s vintage because it was the black and gold label one. Whereas that was updated about 2014, that pale green color.
That was the one in the snow. That's a real vintage review. Distillers Edition Lagavulin. Here's one from the archive. This is the 2016 bottling. I'm very reluctant now to buy any
2000 vintage. That would be then. Yep.
2000 distilled. Yeah, bottled 2016.
Yep.
I'm now at the stage that I'm reluctant to buy any Lagavulin at all. Now, sure, people have said good words about the annual release version, but I'm looking at the prices and I'm thinking, will I risk it? And this is part of the consideration that every whiskey buyer, every whiskey fan faces now, is undergoing the forensics. Why should I buy this whiskey? How is it connecting with me? Is it actually bottled for me or for the passive consumer? So you've got this shakedown.
I think that you have been very good at teaching people immediately. They can hold a bottle in their hand, thanks to Ralphie and the predecessors and the people like you that have been about talking about these things for longer than we've cared about it here. They've been able to hold a bottle and look at the bottle and tell immediately who this whiskey is pointed towards.
Yeah.
And it's the obvious things. Is there an age statement here? Is there a vintage statement here? Was the bottling strength 46 and above for malt? Do they talk about the filtration status? Do they talk about how important it is to keep things naturally colored?
Because it tends to reflect the caliber of casks used in the first place.
And the whole nature of the product development of bringing those casks together, how they've been built and put together, flavor forward. You know, they can't rely on reduction with lots of water. They can't rely on just adding a bit of emulsifier and colorant into it at the end. They've got to try and bring together something that's really, really good flavor forward. When we talk about the OSWAs and things, I know that you and I are very careful to talk about brands and things while the OSWA voting and process and things like that are live. We don't want to be seen to lead people, but our community is not naive. They're not easily led by us, Ralphie. However,
this is why you and I, when we're discussing, you know, what obviously we're going to have some whiskies. These are historical whiskies. They're simply not
from the stash.
So
from the stash.
From the stash. So there's nothing that we're plonking on the table or the barrel here that's going to be kind of front loading any nominations for the online Scotch Whisky Awards.
But forgive us the ability to talk about brands and talk about distilleries and talk about products that might actually be valid for nominating in the OSWAs, because we're still going to do what we're going to do. But know that our motivations is never to single out any brand. Our community does a very, very good job of doing that. But I was just about to hold up this. This would have been a perfect. This is discontinued now, the 10-year-old Scarabus.
Yeah.
There are other Scarabus versions out there. They've got a sherry cask, a batch strength. I think they've still got their non-age statement one out there. Everywhere from 40 quid. Nothing's above 50 quid. Great value. Single malt Islay Scotch whisky.
Yeah.
This was a 10-year-old one that came out, and it was below 50 quid as well. And the amazing thing about this, Ralphie, is that we want to, is it Kalila? Could it be a Lagavulin and all that? It doesn't matter. Taste it.
Yeah.
Drink it alongside your Kalilas, your Lagavulins, your Ardbegs, whatever you want to sip it alongside. And then decide, is it better or worse or somewhere in between? Then mix the glasses up so that you don't know what you're sipping. A wee coloured dot on the bottom of the glass. It is the quality that's in this bottle is immediately revealed.
Yeah.
You start to have to search for all the little nuances, the texture, the body, the finish. How much does it hang around on the palate? How satisfying is it? It's bigger than just a nose and a sip. And I think we realize that we get past this concept of, is it Kalila, is it that? No, it's Scarabus and it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to ask me, are you going to ask me if the landscape in the next 10 years, in 2035?
It's exactly what I was going to ask. So what do you put me on the spot for 2035 and I dodged the question. How do you see it in 10 years?
I think that whiskey will be a lot more expensive, primarily due to the devaluation of global currencies and inflation. And I think that as whiskey drinkers, we need to understand that when we see good value today, buy into it, stash up on it, because the distilleries, they're cutting things to the wire. There's a lot of competition out there. And the energy costs alone are just shocking across the Scotch whisky industry at this moment in time. And they're trying to squeeze a profit out. And not only that, and people don't, this is where we migrate from being enthusiasts and forensic enthusiasts to actually, feeling sympathy for the industry and the challenges it faces in trying to maintain traditions which are labor intensive, and knowing that you do have a small number of highly automated distilleries like Rose Isle, for example, which produces a certain spirit, and yet Springbank's the one we're talking about. Springbank's the one we gravitate to, and other distilleries similar, where there's people that need to be at paid wages and put food on the tables for the family. These are the folk that are actually doing a highly skilled job. It's very repetitive, it's quite intensive, and we will inevitably over time have to pay more for the privilege of what we're buying. I'm worried. I think I am more of an optimist. I think you're often more of a pessimist for things like that, especially when it comes to financial dynamics and global markets and things like that. But you hit the nail on the head there. People talk about how, the enthusiasts were just a tiny amount in the mass market. And if you base your business based on craft, it's going to fail. You're going to end up. Tell that to Springbank. 40 years now they've been doing things exactly the way they want to do it, not listen to anyone else, and they're breaking their backs trying to catch up and just even get somewhere close to meeting the demand for their product. Now, you tell me that that's not the right way to go the long term. It's a long-term game. It's not a short-term game. And it's also very revealing that this year, and we discussed it, you and I recently, that tickets for whiskey festivals, not just one whiskey festival, but for most whisky festivals are selling out faster than before. And when people turn up, you look to see where the cluster is. Where are they clustering? And it's independent bottlers and it's producers who are actually bottling for the enthusiast who's invested and understands the mechanism.
1,000 people go to each session of the Glasgow Whisky Festival twice every year. Last year it sold out in less than 10 minutes, and I believe this year it sold out even quicker.
Absolutely.
I was at the Independent Spirits Festival in March. I was at the Fife Festival in, I think it was early March or February. Absolutely wall to wall, big smiling faces, all the tables busy, people bristling with excitement for all of it. The tickets for the upcoming festivals, it's the exact same scenario. The Whisky Fringe sold out, despite the ticket price going up quite a chunk this year. Sold out, no problem whatsoever. I got to Whisky Fringe and I went on the Friday because I wanted to go there on a quieter day because it was so busy last year. No, it was every bit as breathless and busy on the Friday. I think I shared a picture from that festival with you where we were 6 deep trying to get to one of the tables at one point in time. And it's just, it's that. So I understand that the enthusiasts are a smaller pocket of people. I'm going to take Christopher, our mutual pal here. We both know Christopher Malloy Ralfy, and he's mentioned, he said, I've amassed too many bottles over the past decade, and I've more or less stopped buying. I wonder how many here are in the same boat. I don't doubt you're going to find a lot of people, Chris, that's in the exact same space as you. What I would say to you, my friend, and I plead to you, your experience is invaluable. There are lots and lots of people coming into whiskey now and in the last few years that are so envious of having a library, an archive, a stash, things that they've been able to accumulate and put off to the side. And also envious of the knowledge that has built. So the value of you, Chris, is for you to sit with your experience. You don't need to spend, you don't need to buy, but you can pay back to the community if you feel like you've gotten anything from the community. You could be one of, almost like the elders, one of these experienced people with a gentle guiding hand can help so many people unlock all the secrets that you've had to grind out over the years as well. I think we've got so many people like Christopher in the community, well-versed, cookie trail of experiences, and what their knowledge, especially if they can share their knowledge in a way that's accessible to people who are coming in later. And I think the more that we are pragmatic about where we find ourselves, we understand how we've ended up in that space, I think the more valuable and insightful we can help people coming into whiskey, understanding basic concepts and things like that. Most people that come into whiskey, would you agree with me, Ralphie? They come into whiskey on the back of probably, like everything else they look at in life, whether it's cars or watches or sports brands or whatever, it's very brand driven.
It can start as being a brand driven, or the shock of tasting Laphroaig for the first time. That tends to kind of kick people off in a whiskey journey.
Or get them right into it.
Absolutely. Kicks them off the whiskey train or onto it. But
how important do you see it? Because we're just about to do the 5th OSWAs. In the 10 years, to frame it the way you've been talking about it, do you see the OSWAs having a place in that next 10 years? Do you see it being a useful thing?
Yes, I do, because it's an original and authentic barometer of what people are aspiring to with whiskey, what is considered good value. And for someone who's getting into a whiskey, it is an immediate fast track as to, if you buy these bottles, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, you're literally getting a best of experience through the consensus of the enthusiast globally. And it is, I would say, as valuable as a thorough traditional whiskey book, which tells you about the stills and tells you about the whiskey, and it gives you that great introduction. the online Scotch Whisky Awards gets past that introduction, says, right, this is where we are right now. This is what people are thinking. It's voted for. It's democratic. And there's times, Roy, you and I will say, well, I wouldn't have picked that one. I wouldn't have picked. Or we see something that's kind of shortlisted again, and we think, you know,
surely there's more inspiration out there than this. Exactly. I know that we feel like that, but you and I, we can guide the tone, we can guide the structure, we can put all these things in place, but at the end of the day, we can't pick the whiskies.
No.
And as soon as Roy and Ralfy start to pick the whiskies, the concept is broken.
Mm-hmm.
So what we need to do is build a platform so that everybody gets involved in picking the whiskies. Yes, we need to take our place up front. We need to say, look, we stand up there and we accumulate all these stashes of whiskey and this knowledge and experience, and we talk about it every week or whatever on YouTube and things. And all the other people that are involved in that, whether they write or podcast or whatever they do, they need to take a place and say, okay, what are you putting forward for the nominations? Then we put it out to all the contributors that are involved to refine the nominations. And then out of the end of that process, it spits out the 6 for each category. And it goes out to the public.
Yeah.
And we don't leave it at that, do we? We don't say, okay, we're only giving you 6. The People's Choice is a wonderful, like almost popularity chart. That it's almost like it's like a litmus test. It's like sticking the toe in the water of the entire community to work out what their top 10 favorites are in each of those categories. And I think that's where you're talking about that shortcut, that guide, that almost kind of book-like quality to the OSWAs as a kind of reference guide for anybody who cares to look at it, to come in and see. What would you say, though, if it's still important, and given the theme that we are talking about tonight, where do you think the OSWAs need to kind of focus? Where do you think we need to dial in things a little bit, based on the last 4 years of experience that we've had with it?
Right, sure. First thing I'd say is that most of it is actually right, and I don't think there's a lot to dial in. But what we do notice is that there's just little tweaks here and there, just to kind of help it mature, so it's not just a static entity that is unresponsive to the experience both you and I are getting overviewing and mentoring the online Scotch Whisky Awards. I think that what I appreciate is the feedback I get from people saying, hey, Ralfy, the Scotch Whisky Awards, I really enjoyed the live stream. I went out and there's 3 bottles that I wasn't thinking of buying, but they were nominated, and they got such a percentage of the vote. I just went out and bought them anyway. I've opened them now. I've opened one of them. I've opened 2. Maybe one of them will open some other time. And they've really, really enjoyed it, because sometimes with the whiskey journey, the most exciting bottle of whiskey that we have yet to taste is the one we'd never even thought about.
Yeah. It takes somebody else to put it in your radar.
Yeah. For example, I mean, a good working example of that is, say, an independent bottling of Benrinnes or Glentochers, which doesn't appear as an official bottling. And then people think, well, it's just blend filler, because that's the kind of dogma that goes around it. It was never good enough to be a standout, malt in its own right.
And you and I know, if the blenders are after it, they're after it for a very specific reason.
Totally.
Right? If it's prized by blenders, and think of all the ones that are out there that you just never see any whiskey from, because it's so prized by blenders.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? There's a reason why Glentochers isn't being built up to being a super strong brand in its own right, because so many blends are significantly reliant and improved by that whiskey and on that whiskey. Ola Tortuga is in. Good to see you. He's saying, given the reduction in older whiskies, it feels like the future in whiskey will be in cask experimentation, and we'll need to learn and enjoy together. Exactly right. All that leaning on community, learning as it changes over the years, but the expansions in stocks, the warehousing investment that's happening in Scotch whisky right now means that we are sitting on a lot more than we've ever been on, but sitting on top of before, maturing stock. And as the years tick by, it's becoming older and older and older as well. So allow yourself a little optimism that we will be able to access older whiskies in the future. I hope that that's the case. One Glassman Warner, good to see you, buddy. He's saying a shout out to Ardnahoe. Honest, naturally presented, great taste and value, even in pricey Miami. The inaugural, the Bolsa, the Infinite Loch, all under $65. Distilleries, take note. Ralphie was speaking very positively, I think privately to me, Ralphie, about Ardnahoe. I'll maybe get your opinion on that in a second. And Pepe Bruno has also bought us a dram as well, with no comment in there. Just take Warner's question there on Ardnahoe. You've been quite impressed, and this has nothing to do with, this is going to happen regardless of what you say right now, so it's nothing to do with that. It's incidental that we should be speaking about Ardnahoe. But it is remarkable, isn't it? Because there's an Islay distillery, the first Islay distillery since Kilchoman. And they've come out, they've waited 5 years, they brought their inaugural out, we braced ourselves, they put it out 70 quid, £70. Their special releases from Fashil, £85, limited Fashil releases. This is fair pricing, and the core range that they've put in place with the Sherry Cask Bolsa, less than 60, the Infinite Loch, less than 55. This is super positive.
What's super positive is that specifically Ardnahoe is not gearing and catering its whisky production for the passive market. It's like Ardna market.
Unterling don't know how to sell to the passive market, I don't think. That's never been their target.
It's not their target. This is where the enthusiast, the genuinely invested enthusiast, enjoying a better quality experience across the board. And it's not just the whiskey, it's the company, it's the communications, it's the whiskey festivals, it's the whiskey clubs, it's the saving up a bit of money for a birthday present, and you know exactly what you're going to buy, and you're delighted by the experience. And it's not chill filtered, and it's not loaded with industrial dye, because E150 caramel colorant is made in a factory. It's not just boiled sugar in the saucepan in the kitchen somewhere.
No, and it's by a chemical process as well.
Precisely.
It's horrible stuff. Yeah,
it is artificially. It's an artificial dye. But this doesn't bother the passive consumer. But there again, flavour doesn't particularly bother them either. And when you've got a generation of distilleries who, well, let's see how big they grow. They won't grow too big, but they have their niche, their growing niche of the enthusiast. Rassay is another good example. Isle of Harris has had a very good reception with their initial release. King's Barn, of course, is just releasing its first 10-year-old whiskey. Glasgow Distillery has been, there you go. And Glasgow Distillery, for example, is being seen to be very interactive. That's the one. With the whiskey community, and the whiskey community is saying, right, here comes the distilleries to meet these small distilleries, to meet us, to sit round our whiskey club table and ask us what we think, ask our opinion. And there is no way that a corporate multinational is even remotely interested in this. But as much as the bling bottlings, the overpriced, overpresented, collectible editions, investment grade, non-fungible token whiskies with casks dragged out from the peat bog on the back of a tractor. You know, that market is temporary, it's fleeting, and frankly, it's collapsing at the moment. And there's big distilleries, important distilleries, they're actually in significant trouble. And we're not going to be, I mean, I feel for them, particularly for staff employed at them.
Well, there's an interesting comment here from David in Portugal, and David is saying the new Gen Z is one drinking less of all generations by far. So there goes 20 to 30 years. He's talking about an entire generation here of mass market consumption shrinking.
It's true.
Yet how the slice of the pie will more or less stay. And I think that he's spot on. I also would suggest that perhaps maybe I'm being naive, but I think that maybe Gen Z potentially is also the ones that are picking up a form of alcohol. They're not drinking it like we did back in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, Ralphie.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they are much more informed, and I think they are looking at this from a flavour perspective.
Yes.
I think that the casual sipping consumption market is the one that's shrinking. That's the one that's causing the shareholder profit warnings. That's the one that's causing the backlogs in the warehouses, the throttling back and the shuttering and mothballing and of shifts and distilleries and all of these things. I don't know how much, everywhere I go where there are enthusiasts involved, things are still bizarrely super vibrant.
Mm-hmm. You look at Japan, for example, the Gen Z generation, it's not just the fact that they're not so interested in alcohol. They're not so interested in consumption, period, because this is part of human evolution, social evolution. They realize that consumption was the debt trap for their parents, and they have grown up seeing the parents having to put in extra hours, extra financial worry to finance the contrived culture of consumerism. Particularly in Japan, the drinking culture in the business field has been notorious for the amount of problems and alcoholics that's been created. And you see the same thing in China. But technology is informing people so much faster. The world around us is changing so much more rapidly. And the younger generation are responding to that. They're also spoiled with their options for drugs. In our generation, it was alcohol and a bit of wacky-backy, right? If you wanted to go to the reggae disco on a Saturday night, and it was only a Saturday night, and they're all drinking orange juice, I was there. I absolutely loved it. And I didn't need any wacky-backy. I just stood up and did a bit of passive smoking, and that was quite enough for me. But the younger generation, it's not just standard recreational drugs. And I flippantly was saying in my channel recently, there's a new generation that they're moving on from alcohol to cocaine and antidepressants. Now, there's actually a certain amount of truth to that, because alcohol reacts badly. It doesn't go well with modern recreational drugs, which are much more mainstream. And people are also a lot more health conscious. And we've seen this with the pandemic global lockdown culture shock. And this isn't really part of the conversation. It will be in a few years' time. But we've got a generation who are suddenly realizing they have to take more responsibility for their own health. So they're out buying green tea. They are asking in the supermarket, what's my avocados been sprayed with? The vegans are getting their blood tested now, seriously, to find out if they've got mineral and trace element deficiencies due to the industrialization of their vegan food supply. And
it's that convergence, isn't it, of choice, discernibility, but also of knowledge and being able to reach out to the knowledge. I think right on point, we've got Mike and Veruri again saying that 18 to 24-year-old market in the UK are drinking less than they've ever done before. Yet, he's saying, they are spending more than they have ever done as a percentage of their income. They are looking for quality. Be interesting to see some stats on that. I remember when I was very young, I used to earn just to live at the weekend. And I would say I was spending a huge chunk of my income, but it was in an irrational way, and it wasn't a particularly responsible way. Like you, Ralph, we enjoyed it, we loved it. I think that we didn't have the internet in our pockets, though.
No,
we didn't have knowledge, we didn't have recommendations, we didn't have influencers, we didn't have this immediate instant culture. It was a much slower thing. And any media we did have was only radio and television. Everything is much more instant today, and I think Mike's right there. What they're spending, you've hit the nail on the head there when you talk about the teas that they're asking about and the stuff. This is all a product of privilege, but also awareness and knowledge, and being just much more choosy about what people consume. Do you think the OSWAs help people like us, experienced people? Do you think it helps people like the younger people, the 18 to 24 generation coming in looking for flavour and whiskey and things? Do you think it helps everyone? It's something that I constantly ask myself, because you've already mentioned that we shake our heads a little bit at some of the nominations. We realise that we can't control. There are picks in there that we wouldn't have. There are things that we are a bit sad that never made it, that we feel should have made it. But we still get a big kick out of the OSWAs. I think you and I use it as a barometer to measure trends. The changing face of whiskey, the changing face of the whiskey consumer and enthusiast and things. We like all of that out of it. But I think you and I, when we started the project, we wanted to make sure it would help people coming into whiskey and be an interesting metric for people who were seasoned whiskey fans. Yes. Do you think we're achieving that?
Right. Yes. I'd like to answer two answers. The first one is from our own perspective as enormously privileged, seasoned, experienced commentators, where both you and I are invested in keeping up to date without going too far and too far ahead with what's actually happening out there. And also both you and I know sufficient people across the industry, from distilleries to retailers to brand ambassadors as well, who realize we're not this online threat of numpties that originally we were kind of presumed to be. And to a certain extent, they'll confide in us more, and we respect that as well, because we're, in a sense, we're neo-journalists, except we're keeping a journal of this whole whiskey sphere, commenting on it, observing it.
And our grammar's a lot worse.
And our grammar is more honest. Our grammar is more natural. And you and I, we're curious to overview the OSWAs to see where the general trend and consensus and feeling is. And I think any smart distillery business or retailer out there, they're going to be looking at the online Scotch Whisky Awards saying, well, I expected that and that, but I didn't expect that. And therefore, they're going to look at perhaps a certain brand from a slightly different perspective and maybe get a few more bottles in just to see how it goes. From the user's perspective, which is the whiskey enthusiast, the online Scotch Whisky Awards will never attract the passive consumer that wants to buy Grandad a New Year's gift to see in the bells, wherever they are around the world, because that tradition is changing. To a certain extent, is dying. The Scottishness of New Year is becoming less Scottish, more global. But then again, being British, it was. I mean, I don't know if people are aware of this, but up until 1956, Christmas was banned in Scotland, which is why New Year was an important festival. Because Christmas,
I wasn't aware of that.
Right. Christmas Day was a working day. I remember my grandfather going to work on Christmas Day.
Okay, I see. Rather than a ban, you're talking about just a regular day. Yeah.
Rather than a regular working day because of Presbyterianism. And that's why New Year was considered in Scotland a more important holiday, because Christmas has always been the traditional holiday for England and Wales, of course. But in Scotland, particularly amongst the Presbyterian Protestants, Christmas working day is a more of a pagan festival type thing. Too much enjoyment, too much bright lights and Christmas trees nonsense. In fact, I can remember as a kid, you'd see a Christmas tree in someone's house and I had one string of lights on it. And it was something like 10-watt bulbs. And they'd be blowing after 2 or 3 days. Christmas was far duller, physically duller than it is now. When we look at the brightness of light coming out your average television screen now, it would be a shock to the senses of people that had old vacuum tube televisions back in the day.
Oh, I know.
They're absolutely.
And sometimes we do have to remember the sheer kind of privilege and for us to even be sitting here and pontificating over all of these things, that we have come a hell of a long way.
Yeah, and
but now that we're here, I think do something with it, right? It's just
absolutely make the most of it. And you and I, when we discussed the online Scotch Whisky Awards, we saw it as a natural development of onliners providing enhanced, useful content which complemented the whisky industry.
Well, I think that I started out the session by, when I welcomed you in, recognizing what you've contributed to whisky. But any tastings I've been at with you, any conversations that we've had, you'll regularly refer to yourself as a pest and a somebody who's just a noise in somebody's ear and things like that. And I think that's you being a bit self-aware or showing humility as well. But I think that there is your net effect. We should all be kind of measuring ourselves. Do we have a positive effect on whatever space that we're in? Or are we draining from, are we negatively affecting that thing? I think we should try to have a positive effect on it. And I think you have had a positive effect on it. And I think that when you came to me with this idea of, what do you think about this idea of the OSWAs or whatever, your reason for it was to try and add to that positive effect and to try and do something earnestly, independently, ethically, and just try and reflect what the community was all about. Do you think we're achieving that? I've dropped a poll in, by the way, if anyone's still listening along. We've only got 117, 118 votes in. There's still well over 400 of you in. There's a poll in the live chat right now, and I've asked a simple question. I am excited for the OSWAs in 2025, and it's just a yes or no answer. Ralphie, I know you can't see the chat right now, but you know what? We're looking for, we would hope that the majority is going to come back saying, yes, we're excited for it. I think we started it in the pandemic years when whisky was at its exacerbated, overheated peak, negatively in a lot of cases. And we've seen things kind of settle again. Some equilibrium has started to swing in potentially for the future for us. But we've measured that over the years. Are you still feeling now that we can still use the OSWAs as part of our positive effect? Are you still feeling now that it is a positive thing? It takes a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of from everyone involved, right? It takes a lot of work and effort from even the people that set up, that sign in to just put their votes in and things like that. The cumulative hours involved in the OSWAs, it's massive.
Yeah. I think it's particularly useful for people who want to know more about whisky, people who are already, it gives an annual event, an established annual event to the existing online whisky community and other whisky commentators, either in blogs or vlogs. I think it's recognized legitimately as not something that's been delivered through a marketing department from within the industry, that it is separate and it is valued as such. And I would say that it certainly aids in the general tone that's been set in the modern online conversation, because no distillery that wants to still be in business in a few years' time is going to dare bring their product to market now at 40% chill filtered and with E150 colorant in it. Their primary market is not the passive consumer. Their primary market that they're going to establish with the customers who are going to help them grow their business and establish their reputation, so as that they can reach the passive consumer in a number of years' time. That is the enthusiast. And
I think I'll take what you've said and absolutely agree with it. I think there's a role, there's a responsibility on our shoulders now that we've stepped forward to say we're going to do this thing and we're going to do it for a 5th year this year. There's a responsibility to do the best we possibly can with it and make it as good as it can possibly be to all the consumers that participate, but also to best display the industry as best as we possibly can, the good stuff that's happening. You and I are looking at tweaks this year to focus on that. Less is more, quality over quantity. We are not interested in making sure everybody gets a mention. It's not what the OSWAs are for. We are not interested in telling and reassuring everybody what sells best, what is the most popular, what is loved most by everyone. That's not what the OSWAs should be about. The People's Choice will have a role in that, certainly. We want, I think both of us, Ralphie, want the OSWAs to uncover diamonds and gems, celebrate the good stuff, celebrate the hard work and the earnest endeavor, celebrate the products that have got that recipe that you've just mentioned right, that they've decided not to launch their product at 40%, especially when we talk about malt whiskey. Malt whiskey does not want to be 40%. If you want to sell it at the legal minimum requirement of 40, you have to doctor malt whiskey to do that. It doesn't want to be down there. It starts to play funny buggers below the mid-40s. Malt whiskey tells us that it's going to be difficult to handle at lower ABV.
Yeah.
So the people that bring it to us, naturally, the OSWAs should be celebrating them. The producers who make hugely difficult step changes on their business models from that 40% mass market to switching some of their or all of their core range over to natural. That's a massive step. The OSWAs should be celebrating those. The new distilleries that come along and best foot forward, 46% plus, 50% plus natural whiskey right through. That's what the OSWAs should be celebrating. That's what the focus should be. We know, you and I know, there's a good chance that you and I will be sitting going, oh, Wild Turkey again, Springbank again, Ardmarken again, Arran 10 again, all of these types of things. And if that's what the OSWAs churn out, you and I are the messengers and we just have to deliver that message.
Yep.
But I would ask all of our community and everybody that's involved in it, and every step of the way, take a beat, spend a little bit more time, think about it. And if you're putting a bourbon in there and Wild Turkey's the only thing that you can come up with again, I don't think you should be putting anything in the bourbon category.
They're listening, Roy. They're listening.
Right. And I think if it's just because the OSWAs doesn't really benefit that sector of whiskey. It's the only thing. We are the Scotch whisky community. That's what the awards are about. And bourbon's not our scene. But if we don't do bourbon out service, or it's not even bourbon, is it? It's non-malt whiskey. It's any other grain.
Yeah.
Anything other than malt. If we can't really do that category of service, you know, either we're not sipping, we're not expanding our palate, we're not exploring, we're not as curious as we say we are, or we are being a little bit, we're just saying, oh. So the only thing that they can put in is the kind of the familiar stuff. So there's a wee bit of a burden on our shoulders, Ralphie, to try and tighten and tweak and make sure that they stay relevant and the variety is there, and that there's a wee bit of value for people that are new to the OSWAs and people that have watched every OSWAs and everywhere in between.
I think
that's
it's doing
a plan,
fine, right?
isn't it? Sorry?
I think it's easy for us to be forensic about it, but I think it's doing fine. It's typical of a situation. It's 5 years old, the OSWAs. It's actually been 5 years. We've already had a trifecta year, but it's finest moments still to come, Roy, because the growing global consciousness of not just Scotch whisky, but global spirits, because the conversation's kind of moving. It's not just about Scotch. There's many Scotch whisky drinkers. They've got the bottle of rum. They've got the bottle of craft bourbon or better quality bourbon. They're increasingly, and I was quite heartwarming on my channel to see the interest in a decent Armagnac, because people who understand more about Scotch whisky can relate to the stringent quality of the composition and production of an Armagnac, which tends to be overlooked and dismissed because its nearest neighbour, cognac, is frequently bottled at 40% overpriced in silly flasks. Not always, but often.
And I think, bizarrely, despite it being a different drinks category from a different ingredient, our appreciation of whiskey over the years means that we can pick up a good quality cognac, Armagnac, a brandy, Calvados, rum, whatever it may be, and it might be we can feel it's a step change.
Absolutely.
But our appreciation of sipping, holding, contemplating, thinking, it's just it migrates very, very well to whiskey into those type of things. That said, we're not going to be there's too many categories in the OSWAs already, right? We agree.
No more categories, and don't even mention tequila. I have not bought a bottle of tequila now for 5 years, and I've got no intention to.
Things
are going very fashionable. It was particularly party crowd.
The overheating happened there as well. There's more celebrity tequilas out there than we can count today. Listen, Ralphie asked that question to the poll. Listen, I was a wee bit nervous because it was dropping down into the low 80s, but we're now up. We've broke 203 votes in now. So about 50% of the people watching have voted. 88% of them have answered yes. I am excited for the OSWAs in 2025. Ralphie, that's more than acceptable.
So what's up with the 12%? Are they having a laugh?
But when we set out, we knew from our years in YouTube that we would never be able to please everyone.
Nah, no chance.
So,
now, Roy, could you excuse me for a second? Because I know it doesn't look like it. I'm all calm and collected above the surface, but I am absolutely bursting for a pish.
Away out to your wee stream at the side of the bothy.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pull up here, Ralphie, and you need your pee because I'm going to bully you into staying for the quiz at the end. Right, I'm going to share the dates with everyone while you're away.
Splendid stuff, Roy.
See you in a second. Pish, the colloquial term for a comfort break. Good stuff. I'm going to end this poll now. 209 of you voted. Thank you so much. 88% of you excited for the OSWAs. I'd have taken that ratio all day long. I was quite happy when it started at 85, 84. Dropped down to 82 at one point. It kept dropping. I was like, what's going on? But nice to see that it's settled now. And we're at an 88% excitement level with 215 votes in. Still votes coming in, but that's a really, really good percentage. Thank you for indulging me on that. So let me tell you how the shape of the OSWAs are going to work in 2025. I think most of you know the drill by now. What's happening in the background right now with a link that's been shared. And in fact, let me share that link with you now. We're close to the end of the thing and encourage you to stay for the quiz at the end. This link will be live until midnight on Monday. So Monday, the 8th of September, this link will stay live until. Copy that, drop back into here, then here, and I'll stick it in I'll paste it into the and I'll pin it. So that link that I've popped in there now, is that my own one I've managed to pin or not? Yes. So that's going to take you to a Google form. And what we're doing in the background now is we're harvesting two things. We're harvesting inspiration from the community. So we're going to be looking at the things that you are excited about, and we're going to use that to drive the nomination curation from the contributors. So they're going to be able to put forward their own things from their own minds. Of course they are, because that's the place that they take as Whisky guides, wherever they are, whether they're podcasting, writing, YouTubing, reviewing, whatever it is that they do, they're going to put forward. But they're also going to be asked to take inspiration from the community harvested suggestions as well. After that's done, we go out to all the contributors involved in the OSWAs and refine everything down. So we could be in a situation that we have anywhere between 15, 18, 24, 32 nominations for each category. And the way that we refine that down to 6 is we go through to the last year, I think we had close to 80 contributors, but this year it could end up swelling to more than that. Why? Because the form that's out right now and live until midnight on Monday the 8th is also collecting suggestions from the community of other contributors that should be involved. If they've got significant presence on social media, writing about whisky as individuals or as part of a bigger site such as Dramface. We've always tried to squash Dramface together and just kind of have a homogenized single opinion to come out of Dramface. I don't think that's fair, because we've got some serious whisky geeks and enthusiasts and opinions inside Dramface, and we should be asking them for individual opinions. So we'll be asking the community for all of those places, whether they're on YouTube, social media channels, podcasters, reviewers, doesn't matter. If they're not involved, recommend them. If they are already involved, recommend them. It reassures us that we're speaking to the right people. The places that you consume whisky content is what we want to hear about. Who are your guides? Because we need to make sure that they are at least invited to participate. It's easy for us to do that part of it. Okay, I'll give you the dates right now and let you know how things are going to shape up. The community poll is live now. The link is in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, it's in the description. It's in the comments below. Hopefully I've remembered to do that after I've killed the stream tonight. But there is a live community poll out there right now. And that is harvesting from everyone. And that's going to be taking all of your suggestions for inspiration. And that's based on products, all the 9 categories, and potential contributors too. You can step forward and nominate yourself as a contributor. All that I ask is you have been active in guiding on whisky in the last year, and that you have been active in guiding on whisky for a year, minimum. Then Ralphie and I will get together on a Saturday at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. on Saturday, the 20th of September. And we'll have been through all of this process in the background in the next 2 weeks. We'll have harvested all those votes. We'll have put together all the contributors, invited everyone, given them the opportunity to go in and make their votes. That is going to spit 6 top nominations out of the machine at the end that will give us the nominations that Ralphie and I will sit down and share with you on Saturday, the 20th of September. They then go out there for public vote, and the public vote will be out there for at least 2 or 3 weeks. You'll have plenty of time to go in and make your vote, and then go in and edit your vote and change your mind and mix it up. And right up until the poll closes, you'll be able to edit your vote. Then it'll take us about a week or 2 to notify all the winners, to put together the certificates, all of that stuff, and prepare for the winners' ceremony, which will happen on Saturday, the 1st of November. The nomination show and the winners' ceremony will both land at 6 p.m. on Saturday evenings. I hope that that's clear to everyone and you know what you're all about. Ralphie, you more comfortable now, fella?
I have returned. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to the OSWAs this year, Roy, because it's become part of the whole online thing. I think there's definitely, in the older days, there was considerable suspicion by the industry collectively towards the onliners, who were considered loose cannons. And I think
we should still preserve a wee bit of loose cannonishness.
Absolutely. I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. But when I said, kind of jokingly said earlier, and I've not been sued yet, right? And seriously, that an opinion remains an opinion. We're aware of the increasingly sensitivity nature of opinions, but in the whisky zone, we keep things civil. And I think that the industry itself, smart people in the industry, they acknowledge that quietly in the background and realize, particularly at times when it's going to be a lot tougher, that the little edge, that the positive in contribution of the online community, those who make content and those who enjoy that content, it all adds up. And at the end of the day, if we can raise a glass of a whisky and really enjoy it with our experience, Roy, it means that the Scotch whisky industry is still holding its reputation as being a world-class spirit producer. Cheers.
Here. Here's to the 2025 OSWAs.
Here it is to the OSWAs. Looking forward to the votes.
We're committed now, fella. We need to make it happen. It's a shrunken time. We've started a week later. We're finishing it a week earlier.
Yeah.
Lost 2 weeks off it, but we've still given ourselves 2 months to do everything. And we'll jump in and make sure everything happens and we make it work. I'm looking forward to it. Always look forward to working with you, Ralphie. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the I do. I genuinely do. Looking forward to what the community helps us.
Oh, behave yourself.
I'll stay behaved. Actually, when you ask me to behave, you'll have to wait a wee while longer because we've hit the 2-hour mark. I am going to encourage you, if you're willing, now that you've had a comfort break especially, to stay for a wee bit of a quiz at the end. However, I need to caveat this, Ralphie.
Yes.
I had already prepared most of this quiz, and I remembered it was the night that Ralphie was coming on. Switched out a couple of questions to include some Ralphie questions. But overall, the pass mark tonight, Ralphie, is 5. It's not an easy quiz, fella, okay?
Thank goodness.
It's not Menno.
It's not Menno. That's great because, you see, I've just had a comfort break before the quiz, Roy, so as to reduce the chances of me pissing my pants over these questions.
No, there's no worry of that. And I know exactly what you mean. I played the Menno quizzes all through the summer break. And there was a couple of times that all I needed was the ass hat to get a 10 out of 10. And I tripped over at the ass hat. And some of them I was way off. There was one I think I got a 6 out of 10, and it was really, really brutal. I hope we're not there yet. But you know the thing, Ralphie, you and I are in the same position on this. We are still learning every day. Yeah. And the best way to learn is to be open to the fact that you don't know everything.
Oh, no chance.
So
there's too much to know, Roy.
Absolutely.
When it comes to the fabric of different distilleries, the capacity of washbacks, at which point, at which date did a fire occur in the maltings, which was
and the wonderful thing about getting these things wrong, you realize you don't need to know these things. They're not part of whiskey enjoyment for you. But occasionally a wee nugget will come along and you'll say, oh, is that right? And you'll end up down some kind of wee learning rabbit hole. Jimmy Legg is saying, I think you should have an honest effect on the subject and community that you're involved with. Well, I'm trying very hard, Jimmy. I know that we all are, fella. It's nice to see you still with us at the end. I hope you're staying for the quiz. And my pal Ron Gerdsley is in. Always worry about how I'm pronouncing your surname, Ron, but it's nice to have you. Hello, Roy and Ralphie. I'm looking forward to the 5th annual OSWAs, and thanks for doing what you both do. Ron, thank you for being here and being part of it, my friend. It's really, really nice to have you. Okay. It's the quiz at the end, folks. We're going to wind things up. Ralphie's going to stay till the end, and it's really nice of him to do that. We'll all play along. Ralphie is at a disadvantage because you get to lean on each other and follow each other in the crowd and in the community. Ralphie's going to have to wing it on, looking me dead-eye as he goes through the quiz, raging at some of the questions, hopefully quite pleasantly surprised at a couple of others. It's always multiple choice. You're only playing against yourself. There's nothing to be nervous about here. It's just for good fun to close out the vPub. Ralphie, thank you so much. What have you got in the glass to go through the quiz at the end? I have poured.
Look at this. Look at the Scotch mist kicking off in that, by the way. This is the power of the archive.
It also betrays the temperature of the bothy. Oh, look at that. An old Springer.
An old Springer. It's just the Tokai 12-year-old. I think it is. It's some, or is it an Appley one? Hang about. I need my steampunker.
Calvados cask?
It's kind of weathered in the bothy with all this alcohol mold type thing. Wood. It says something wood. Calvados wood. That's what it is. Calvados wood. Distilled 2000, bottled 2012. 9,420 bottles. Bottled at 52.1 or 7%. Yeah, it's just an absolute. It's one of these bangers where you have a glass and then you just kind of put it in the corner and you forget about it and then you refind it. You have another glass and then you put the cork on and you leave it 2012. So, so I've had this for a long time.
I bet it's, especially because you're not uncorking it and recorking it all the time. It's just been left to sit. I bet you're probably quite surprised how vibrant that thing still is after all these years.
It's wonderfully intact, and more whiskey fans are realizing that actually just in the right conditions, a cooler storage space, leaving the bottles undisturbed,
away from strong lights.
Yeah, away from strong lights. They will hold up really, really well over time. And therefore, to have a bottle of whiskey, Roy, and this is unprecedented, nobody would even consider this 20 years ago, that you have a bottle of whiskey and it lasts you a decade.
More than a decade. If that's bottled in 2012, Ralphie, and only 9,000 bottles, I guarantee that disappeared quickly.
Yeah.
You picked that up in 2012. You're sitting here 13 years later and enjoying it, and it's still vibrant.
Yes.
Here's to that. And no, it doesn't work like that all the time for all whiskies.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely sure. You've got higher ABV there. You're not opening and closing it that often.
Precisely. And also, it's not chill filtered. Chill filtration denatures and accelerates the oxidization of whiskey in a bottle, without a doubt.
Somebody mentioned to me the tomato ketchup effect recently, and they talked about how consumerism is driven by encouraging you to get through things quickly and toss them away, not to be repairable, not to be easy to keep going and maintain and things like that. And they talked about how the majority of tomato ketchup is actually thrown away because it's left inside packaging, or it's left on the side of plates, and it's left in little bowls and things and everything. And we actually consume less ketchup than is actually made. Don't know if it's true or not. It's a wee anecdote there, but I get the concept completely. Petehead Frank is here. Now, please start the quiz. I'm almost falling asleep. My goodness, Frank, I have never, ever, ever had to accommodate such a rude question. Remember your decorum, my Dutch friend. We are now ready to start the quiz at the end. And may I point out, Frank, it's only 2 hours and 8 minutes. We are much earlier to start the quiz than we normally are. Are you becoming impatient, my tall, handsome friend?
Yeah, so get over it, mate.
All right, fella, let's listen to the big man. Let's get the quiz started. 4th of September, quiz at the end. Ralphie in the house playing along. Good luck, everything. Good luck, everyone, sorry. With everything.
Fire away, Roy.
Question 1, Ralphie. Which of these facts is true about Strathyla Distillery?
Oh, good.
A, it is the oldest distillery in Speyside. Or B, it was once known as Milton Distillery. Or C, as home of Chivas Regal, it's the most visited distillery in Speyside. Now, the banana skin to help you here, Ralphie, often quiz question number 1 at the quiz at the end. All 3 answers are correct and everybody gets a freebie. Right. The banana skin suggests no, be careful. There is one of those that is completely wrong, while 2 are facts.
Right, that's me. Yeah, I've made my decision.
It's either the oldest distillery in Speyside, or it was once known as Milton, or is the home of Chivas Regal. It is the most visited distillery in Speyside. Oh. Mm-hmm. This is splitting the crowd.
Uh-huh.
There is a wee bit of a banana skin here, Ralphie. I wonder if you're going to skate on this banana skin too.
Yes.
Let us see what your answer is, big guy. What have you got?
Rightio. I've got BC.
B and C. It was once known as Milton Distillery and is home of Chivas Regal. It's the most visited distillery in Speyside. A wee bit like last week, I've been a wee bit cheeky with you here. I can tell you that the oldest distillery in Speyside is in fact Strathyla. A is correct. It was once known as Milton Distillery, and Ralphie's right. It's absolutely correct. As one of home of Chivas Regal, it's the most visited in Speyside. No, that is not correct. However, at 15,000 visitors a year, based on 2022 numbers, I couldn't find out what the most visited distillery in Speyside actually is.
Right.
So if you answered A, B, or C tonight, you can take a point. Just 1 point. You don't get a point for each. Same as last week with the Victoriana question in there. Moving on to question 2. So there you go. It was once known as Milton, and it is the oldest Speyside distillery. Which renowned Highland distillery, just since the Second World War, by the way, has been owned by Teachers, Allied, Pernod Ricard, Billy Walker, and Brown Forman. Just since the Second World War, this renowned Highlander has been owned by all of those companies. I'm talking about A, Glenglassaugh, B, Glendronach, or C, Benriach. Ralphie's committing already.
Yeah.
Teachers. This is Teachers were about the 1960s. Allied Domecq came in about the 1970s. A bit later, Pernod Ricard. And then up into the early 2000s, Benriach Distilling Company under Billy Walker got involved. And then finally, today, Brown Forman. Which of those renowned Highland distilleries is it? Rick Johnson, Graham Young, Kyle Taylor, Nicholas, Tony Nelson, DVDW. I would encourage you to reread the question. I know that some of you may suggest that people like Macallan and Glenfarclas are Highland distilleries, and it says so on the label. But in the vPub realm, they are Speyside distilleries. Which renowned Highland distillery has been owned by Teachers, Allied, Pernod Ricard, Billy Walker, and Brown Forman? Ralphie, what do you think?
C. Benriach.
Oh, I tried to tell you all that were answering C. It's Glendronach. a Highland distillery located in the Highlands. Oh dear. I think too slow. Gene Kelly, Ted Brooks, Chris Dunn, Vasile, Dave the Brave, Danny Hebbington, Sugar Kitty, Greg's Whiskey Guide, Jimmy Legg, Ebhead. All of these people also answered C. Ralphie, Bruce Bernard. I think I'm going to end up being called Menno tonight. Lord Asshat. I might take his crown from him. Question 3. Here's a wee, I'm stealing this from Dramface, the concept of I am a distillery. I'm going to give you some factoids. You need to decide what distillery it is. I am a distillery with my own malt floors. They provide me with 25% of my production requirement, while Simpson's provides the other 75. I dry in 14-ton batches over smoke for 10 hours, then 34 hours over hot air for a softer, smoky style. I am founded in the 1700s and currently under Japanese ownership. Who am I? I am A. Lefroy, B. Highland Park, or C. Bamore. Ephead is saying Benriach is Highland. No, I see it in a bottle. So all the Speyside are permitted to call themselves Highland. Ralfy, good to see you in, buddy. Malt Minions here tonight. Good to see you, Chuck. Orange Wool is here. Fantastic. Daisy Vleland, of course you're here, Daisy. How are you doing? Wonderful to have you. Fernando as well. Good to see you, buddy. Still in at the quiz at the end. Greg's Whiskey Guide in from Paris. Good to have you hanging out with us. Barry Coleman is here. Whiskey Slayer. MG Rodden too. Mike Molasses. Rob Smith. Tony Lambert. Tony is saying brilliantly coloured Bamor. You're not wrong, fella. Big guy. Ralphie, what are you thinking? Soft, smoky style. Founded in the 1700s. What's your answer, fella?
1700. Oh my goodness, I'm just all over the place in this, Roy. This is the point in which I absolutely destroy my reputation of knowing stuff by falling to pieces at these quiz because I'm overthinking it completely.
Well, there's a couple of clues in there. I would say the softer, smoky style and Japanese ownership.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I mean, question 3 should be a more accessible question.
Yeah. I'm saying C.
You're saying C for Bamor. 25%. So it has to have its in-house maltings, but all 3 of those have their in-house maltings. That's tricky of me. But Ralphie, you're spot on. It is Bamor. The majority of the crowd got this as well. They answered C for Bamor. Simpson 75%, 25% their own. They only smoke for 14 hours. Sorry, for 10 hours, and then hot air for 34. Hence that light smoky style. Question 4. It's a trickier one. Diageo's top 5 best sellers globally are number 1, the Singleton, number 2, Talisker, number 3, Cardew, number 4, Lagavulin, and number 5, one other which, despite being their third smallest distillery, tiny distillery, comes in at their number 5 top bestseller as a brand. Which distillery is it? A, Cragganmore, B, Oban, or C, Glenkinchie. Famously, this distillery cannot expand. It's famous that it cannot physically expand. Well, I think that the crowd are absolutely unanimous on this one, to the point that Whiskey Slayer is already celebrating a 4 out of 4 on this. I love the confidence, Whiskey Slayer. Anthony Lambert is just typing it, and Whiskey with Molly is saying God knows why. Ralphie recently talked about this. Actually, he refused to review the bottle. He found another alternative bottle to review instead. That despite, and it's the reason it's one of the biggest is because it has multiple brands. It has the 14-year-old standard, and then it has the Little Bay, and other versions as well. The 5th top global bestseller from Diageo is actually, Ralphie?
B, Oban.
Oban. Physically hemmed in by the town and by the location of where it's built. It can't easily expand in any direction, anywhere. It used to be the second smallest Diageo distillery to Royal Lochnagar, but now Brora has reopened, and the scale that it's at makes it a wee bit smaller than Oban. Question 5 is always a picture question. We're at the halfway point now, and here we have a familiar scene, Ralphie.
Familiar? That was a complete one-off, actually. I just took advantage of the fact that it was an ideal whiskey for a snowy day. And even while I was recording it, it was snowing. And that was in 2010, 2009, 2010, over the winter.
Yeah.
And
you were talking about in this video how we had a white Christmas.
Yes.
That year.
Yeah.
But of course, you can see by the blurred out section, I'm not interested in when. I'm just interested in what. What was Ralfy reviewing? A, we can clearly see it was a Johnny Walker Black. Or B, we can clearly see it was a Lagavulin Distiller's Edition. Or C, we can clearly see it's a bottle of Ardbeg's 10-year-old.
Am I even allowed to answer this question, Roy? Because, it's highly likely I'm going to get it right.
Well, Ralfy, answer it. But if you get this wrong, you're going home with what we would call in Glasgow a riddy.
A pure riddy. Absolutely. Right. I anticipate that. I am prepared.
One Glassman Warner is celebrating a 5 out of 5. Confidence that he's got this one right already.
Yes,
Ralfy, what are we reviewing here?
We're reviewing Lagavulin Distillers Edition. The Black Label one, 1999.
You let the cat out the bag with this one because you mentioned it earlier on. You're absolutely right. Lagavulin Distillers Edition. This has been 2010. I would suggest to you that that's going to be a 95 or 90, even a 94 edition. They're always 16 years, the vintage.
Yeah.
The prior, I think. Don't quote 94. Me on that, but I think it's always 16 years. But if we reveal it here, we can take away the blur. And indeed, a Lagavulin Distillers Edition. Vintage Ralfy, vintage Lagavulin. Halfway point now. Everyone's doing really, really well, celebrating their 5 out of 5s on this. Ginger Genius, a pass. Fantastic John. Tony Nelson, Orange Wool, DVDW. Herben Blocker, good to see you, Herben. Whiskey with Molly, Jerry Miller. Martin Jones, Steve Atkiss, Tobias is on a 4, Nicholas is on a 3. Graham Fraser celebrating a 5 along with Hillswood. Mike Molasses and Jimmy Jazz as well. Lachlan Randy, Whiskey Slayer, and so many more. Anthony Lambert, Graham Young, Pete Head. Lots and lots of people with a 5. Ralfy, let's continue into the harder questions now, okay?
All right.
Question 6. Which newly founded Speyside distillery, founded in 2022, is on record to not likely be releasing any of its unpeated single malt that it makes until the mid-2030s? Right. Which distillery has such a luxury? A, Gordon & MacPhail's The Cairn. B, Ardent Spirits Burnobeny. Or C, Dunphail Distillery. Dunphail is owned by the same people that own Bimber.
Right.
But they're on record as saying that they're in no hurry to release their spirit until the apparently await. If they can hold their water until the mid-2030s, I'll be surprised.
That sounds like a mission statement from people who are involved in a passion project. I mean, okay. At the moment, I'm going to take a shot in the dark in this, right? Because I don't have a clue. I mean, I'm looking at their statement. It sounds quite pretentious. 22, they're not going to basically they're saying they're not going to release anything until it's 12 years old, 13 years old.
Who would have such a luxury?
A small distillery with deep pockets and the people financing it, and also a bit of showboating arrogance.
I mean, it could, the cynic among us could interpret that, oh, why are you not confident that it's going to be ready younger?
Yes.
It's a very conservative, traditional way in 2025 or the early 2020s, let's say, when this would have been announced, of looking at things, right? It's a wee bit reminiscent of Francis when he started Daftmill, very, very different reasons, that type of thing. But yeah, but we've worked out the new distilleries made flavor forward, spirit driven, focused. We've worked out that they're very, very drinkable at a young age. But nevertheless, who do you think it is, Ralfy?
Roy, I haven't a clue. I mean, I'm looking at. I'm really trying to do forensics here, looking at the who would make such a statement, and all three of the mentioned distilleries are. It's plausible that they would make these claims, and so I'm I'm just going to go with, I'm going to make a decision here. A.
Spot on.
Oh,
Spot
right.
on.
Right, okay.
As well as the vast majority of the chat, you don't get to see such luxuries as Whiskey with Molly showing off that he's got a Dunphail on his shelf.
Right, okay.
And other people just talking about how that statement came out of Gordon MacPhail regarding the cairn. Mike Molasses put a wonderful quote in just to say, "I predict that they changed their plans."
Yes.
We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Who knows what the future holds, right?
Yeah.
Well done, Ralphie. Well done. I think you've slipped up in one so far. What's the strange about Ralphie's Whiskey Review 1 YouTube review? Aired on September 21st, 2009. I'm suddenly...
Wait a minute.
I don't know if that's the right dates. Have I got this wrong? Because this is definitely September. So if I look at... I tell you what, I'll bring up the answers so that you can see them while I am double checking it. But if I get this wrong, Ralphie, it means that everybody gets a freebie. The strange thing about Ralphie's titled Whiskey Review 1 video is that A, it was not actually Scotch whiskey. B, it was actually his third review. Or C, it's not actually a whiskey review. Now I'm logging into the Ralphie channel in the background right now.
Okay.
Which we have to search for Whiskey Bothy now. No, you pop up under Ralphie, you pop up. Click videos, click oldest.
Yeah.
Okay, Whiskey Review, the video entitled Whiskey Review number 1.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, that is not September. Ralphie is obviously correct. It is February.
Thank you. I was kind of getting a bit concerned there that I'd been influenced by a Time Lord or something.
It doesn't actually affect the question, but theoretically, because I've made such a screw up on this, everyone can take this as a freebie.
Yeah.
People, it's splitting the crowd. Whiskey Review 1 is odd, Ralphie. Can you tell us why it's odd?
It's odd because it's not the first whiskey I reviewed.
Yes.
It's the second whiskey I reviewed.
The second Scotch whiskey you reviewed?
It's the second Scotch whiskey I reviewed. Yeah. So it's actually, right, okay, I mean, this is revealing the answer now.
Yes. Yeah,
right.
It's absolutely right. Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Excuse me. My cat's just come into the bothy with a mouse. Get that mouse out. You're not very naughty. You're very naughty. You know you're naughty. That mouse is going to be... I'm going to have to leave the door open now all night.
If it's an alive mouse, it's a nightmare.
It's a live mouse.
I can tell you that your first review was a Glenora.
It was Glenora from
Canadian whiskey.
Yeah, from Glenbretton Distillery, which was review number 2, and Talisker 10-year-old went out as my first review.
But Whiskey Review 1 went out as your third review. Yes.
It's my third review, is it? Okay. Well, I put B
and then your Abuna was your second. So B is actually your third review.
Thanks for keeping me right. To be honest, Roy, it's all a bit of a blur these days.
Aye. But what was the reason for that? Did you just not like the Talisker review? Is that what it was?
No, I reviewed Glenbretton because I was pissed. That was my first review I recorded because I'd bought the bottle. They'd only just got it in stock at the Whisky Exchange when it was still owned by Secunda. And what happened was the Scotch Whisky Association had sent a lawyer's letter to Glenora Distillery saying you can't call yourself Glen because you're not in Scotland and there'll be confusion. And I was raging about it, Roy. I was furious because this is Nova Scotia. This is Scotland. And the cultural contempt by the Scotch Whisky Association's decision I found very offensive. And this is before a time when people were more sensitive towards these things. And I thought, hang about, This is Glenbretton Distillery, 60 miles south of Inverness, Nova Scotia, which has a very high proportion of Scottish refugees who left Scotland due to the clearances and due to lack of opportunities. And they
Absolutely.
went there because they had no damn choice about it, Roy. And then here's the Scotch Whisky Association dishing out what is virtually a cease and desist, despite the fact that Glenbretton Distillery was making it quite clear on their packaging that it was Canadian whiskey. And frankly, that's wrong. And we've seen this surface yet again with Macaloney's Canadian whiskey,
Yes.
in which they received a letter from the Scotch Whisky Association, you know, basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I've got enough experience to be careful what I'm saying here. However, the effect was quite simply that they were asked not to use the Macaloney's name because it could be confused with Scotch whisky, despite the fact that Macaloney is an Irish name, not a Scottish name, and yet people in the Scotch Whisky Association can't differentiate between Scottish surnames and Irish surnames. You know, give me a break.
And here's Jimmy Legg, a native of Nova Scotia, admitting that he's kept a spreadsheet of Ralphie's reviews from the beginning. And then we've got Greg's Whiskey Guide talking about, taking the words right out of my mouth, that the #1 selling whiskey in India, or one of the biggest sellers of whiskey in India, is called McDowell's.
Yeah.
And because it's owned by Diageo, I guarantee they've unlikely ever had any legal proceedings against them. Well, very, very interesting indeed. We will leave it there and we'll move on.
Yeah.
And apologies, that's a freebie to anybody that got that wrong, because it was February 2009, sorry, and my mistake. Question 8. The Scotch Malt Distilleries in the Malt Whisky Yearbook are split into 3 sections these days. Because of space restrictions, they have malt distilleries as the main section, new distilleries as a subsection, and then micro distilleries as a small subsection after those. But what is the cutoff point to be considered a micro distillery? How small do you need to be? A, 65,000 litres and less. B, 30,000 litres and less. C, 10,000 litres and less. 65,000 is that's not even, is that daft milliliters size, I would say?
Roughly. What
makes you a micro distillery, according to the definitions and the categorization of the Malt Whisky Yearbook, based on nothing more than physical space? They have to keep that book at less than 300 grams to be able to ship it efficiently, to be able to produce it at the price they produce it as. Interestingly, recently, if the Malt Whisky Yearbook, I did a wee exercise, had suffered the same increase in price as whiskey that it documents since it came out 20 years ago, it would now be over 30 quid a copy. But it's not. It remains one of the best value bargains in Scotch whisky. I think, how much was it? $15.95 or something? Let's look at the price here. $15.95.
Mm-hmm.
Guessing here, Ralphie, I think, right?
Guessing, yeah. B, 30,000 litres.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
30,000 litres and less. Good guesswork. Anything that's smaller than that. 30,000 litres sounds a lot. And remember, LPA is litres of pure alcohol. That's not bulk liquid. That's just the alcohol they're producing. So, you know, depending on the ABV or whatever, you can work out what the bulk litres is an average ABV. But it's a still significant amount of liquid. Question 9. Interestingly, what are Bacardi or John Dewar and Sons, Dewar's, 2 best-selling single malts? I found this very interesting. This question's been around for the quiz for a long time. Just so happens it's popped out when Ralphie's on. Aberfeldy is one of Dewar's top sellers, and which other brand? A. Craigellachie, B. Macduff, or C. Altmore?
Do you know, that's a tough one. I'll tell you why, Roy, because it'd be tempting to say Craigellachie because of its visibility.
Yes.
But Macduff has got a larger distribution. But Altmore, although it's not available so much now where we are, it's increasingly recognised as a brand. I tell you what, Bacardi are the exception. It's interesting to note that Bacardi are a privately owned company that are not floated in the stock market and therefore not subject to interference by hedge funds.
I didn't know that.
Well, it's true. You cannot buy Bacardi shares, but you can buy Brown-Forman shares, Diageo shares, Pernod Ricard shares, LVMH shares. And I attribute to the dumbing down of the corporate brands much more so than you have in Bacardi, where you can clearly see that knowledgeable professionals have more of a free hand to impose their signature and quality on these brands. Both Craigellachie, 13, 17, 21. I mean, this is a Menno quiz question, but Craigellachie is the only brand that has the age statements coordinated with Fibonacci numbers.
The odd thing is a weird one, yeah. We'll
That's
save that for the future, Ralph, with that question.
And there's not a lot of people spot that. Macduff, Altmore, by the way, again, it's a very nicely delivered, higher strength whiskey, unchill filtered.
So one of the great omissions from my shelf, and it's just as you say, it's become a wee bit tricky to get a hold of now in our market.
Yeah.
But as the Altmore 18, I adore the 12-year-old. I think it's a wonderful malt whiskey.
Yeah.
Really refined. I think Craigellachie is visible and fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I often have to applaud Dewar's. Stephanie McLeod and the team there at Dewar's doing a great job. I would love to see the same thing happen to Aberfeldy, but it's such a volume product, it would probably be quite sensitive to change right now. Still think it should happen. Macduff, we've got the Deveron and Glendeveron for global travel retail, of course. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking, Ralphie, what do you think is the second best seller out of those three?
Do you know what? I'm struggling in this one.
It's question 9. It's supposed to be hard.
Right. You mentioned a wee clue. It's the. I know that all three have been available through travel retail, so they've got that reach. But I'm looking at now at volume, and I would say B, Macduff.
Nailed it.
Oh my goodness.
Good deduction. Because of the sheer, and this is what we keep talking about, and this is potentially the brands that are likely to suffer now, these mass market brands. It's not that they will become less of a seller than the Craigellachies and the Altmores, but the sales are likely to be impacted more. The Macduff and the Glendeveron and the Deveron brands, they tend to be out on the market at 40% ABV, which I think is always a bit heartbreaking when you taste independently bottled Macduff. It's a heartbreak that the official releases do not represent the distillate the same way that Craigellachie and Altmore does for their respective distilleries.
Mm-hmm. It's worth noting, Roy, that the cask policy in Bacardi, I think, is consistently higher than other big companies. So when you see these bottlings from independent bottlers, the casks that they're getting from the official distilleries are less likely to need to be replaced, the actual casks themselves, because of the competency.
That's interesting in itself, right? And it's just, I suppose businesses, when you scale them, become harder to deal with, but that's annoying. Graham Young is saying 9 out of 9 with a hint from Aqvavitae. Graham Fraser is saying 9 out of 9. I heard that at Macduff today. That's what you call ears to the ground, Graham. Well done. Good to have you in. Fernando's saying 9 out of 9. Okay, I'm officially nervous. Ralphie's, I think he's had at least one banana skin tonight. but he's still on a course for a fantastic score. Let's go into the ass hat, the deliberately obnoxious question at the end. And it's a pick between how many Strath distilleries are currently in production in Scotland. We're looking for Strath in the name. It is about the same number as A, years of operation at Dornoch Distillery, B, about the same number as years of operation at Lag, or C, about the same number as years of operation at Brora, since its reopening, of course. How many Strath distilleries are in existence? I challenge you all to try and recall them from memory. It would be pretty tricky.
Can I throw in a contribution here?
Yes, you're welcome to, yes.
This isn't just malt distilleries, is it? It's malt and grain distilleries.
If it's malt distilleries, usually I'm mindful enough to put the word malt distilleries.
Yes.
So well spotted.
Rightio. Right.
I hope you've helped someone out there. And if you have helped someone out there, I hope you've helped them out to get a 10, Ralphie.
Right. I'm going to say, can I say now?
Go right ahead. In fact, I tell you what I'll do. You go ahead, and then I'll reveal what the answers to each are and see if you get closer or change your mind. Go ahead. What do you think?
I think it's C.
Okay,
Brora.
Years of operation at Brora. Well, I can tell you, since Brora has reopened, that was 4 years ago. Lag opened in 2019, 6 years ago.
How time flies.
69 years ago. Time flies indeed. But it's 4 years now at Brora, which means that we have official Brora in the warehouses on Isla, or maybe elsewhere maturing. Sorry, on Isla, apologies, in the Highlands, or maybe elsewhere maturing. But I'm looking for how many Strath distilleries there are. Ralphie, how many do you think there are?
I think there's 4, because I've got 3 written down.
Go ahead.
Strathclyde, which is a grain distillery in Glasgow.
Yep.
Strathern.
Well done.
Strathisla.
Well done.
And there's one more, but I can't remember which one.
It's another Speyside owned by Diageo, one of the most obscure distilleries out there. Strathmill.
Strathmill, right. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So the answer is C. Ralphie's absolutely spot on. Hey. I think Ralphie's cruising for at least an 8, potentially a 9 out of 10 tonight.
9 out of 10, right?
Let's see how the crowd got on. Randy Rice celebrating a 10. Congratulations. Norin Rad, 10 out of 10 celebrating. Woohoo. 9 out of 10. No suit for Eugene. Superb. Tony Nelson, thanks for the help, Barflies. Fernando managed. No need for nerves, Fernando. You got your 10. One Glassman 10. The second time ever I've had a 10. Must be the Ralphie effect in the room tonight.
Yeah.
Guys, Whisky was screaming Strathmill. DVDW suggesting Strathern, Strathisla, Strathclyde, Strathmill. Nailed it. Come on, 10 out of 10 for Danny Hebbington. Sharmila Sue's on a 10 out of 10. First ever 10 out of 10 for A. Connors. Good to have you in, A. Connors. Congratulations. Lots of people just missing out, like Lassie or Otsman on a 9. Rob Smith on a 10. 10 for Graham Young. Fantastic, Graham. Ginger Genius failed on the ass hat. Sorry, John. So sorry. Malt Minion. 10 out of 10 if I take question 7. Take it, Chuck. Just take it. Gene Kelly saying congrats to all the 10s. Graham Fraser is saying phew, he also got a 10 out of 10. Rick Johnston is congratulating the other 10s as well. Did I miss any 10 out of 10s? Graham Young I got. Daisy's congratulating them. Rob Smith I think I got. Fantastic. Listen, it was a tricky quiz, Ralphie. Really super tricky, but lots of 10 out of 10s from, as if we need reminding from the knowledgeable whiskey folk, the ones that's going to help us hopefully put together another robust, strong online Scotch Whisky Awards. Ralphie, do we care if the numbers of interaction drop in this year's OSWAs?
Yes. Yeah, of course we do, Roy.
I don't care. Less
We
is
want
more.
to know.
Less is more. As
Yeah.
long as we've got the right people contributing the right information and giving us the right inspiration and things like that, I don't care if the numbers are down. I really don't. Because I see that there is some people that were in whiskey during the pandemic, especially, that are not in whiskey anymore.
Yeah.
But they were in it for different reasons, or they've moved on, or whatever. It doesn't matter. I think the people that are still here, and I think the people that are coming into whiskey today, are in it for the flavour, the quality, the integrity. They're in it for the knowledge. They're in it for the insight. They're in it for the community, the camaraderie, all of these things. That's the people I want. And if that ends up being a lesser number, which I predict, I'm okay with that.
Well, I feel more optimistic than you, Roy, because I am aware that there was a surge of enthusiasm because of pandemic lockdown, and so many people were stuck at home. They were getting their whiskey delivered, so they had that the time and the space and the checks. You know, depending in which country you were in, you were getting extra money, and people were enthusiastic for consumer stuff, and therefore at launch then there was the novelty effect. But I do think that as things settle down, as the general trend from quantity to quality continues, people will fully appreciate that to gain the quality of information and the quality of connectivity with whiskey, you want to kind of connect with the people who are already there.
Yes.
That their curiosity will be whetted, Roy,
Whetted.
the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, because what people want when they're starting their little few bottles, their little open bottle stash, closed bottle stash, wherever they are, they want to make sure they got off to a good start and that it is quality and affordable. And the thing about the Online Scotch Whisky Awards is not always, not 100%, but many of the bottlings are very affordable and they're also available. We're not dealing with unicorns here. We're not dealing with obscuriums here. We're dealing with whiskies that are available, that people generally are aware of. They're voting on them because they're widely available, they're widely consumed, and they're understood to be simply of a better quality experience. And that, Roy, is my optimism. And I'm surprised that here
I love your optimism, and I think it's nice that we flipped tonight, because you were the pessimist earlier, and I was bringing an optimism yin to your yang, and now we've flipped. And my kind of pessimism never leads to disappointment type strategy for things like the OSWAs and things. My point is that if we do see decreased engagement numbers, I see that as an equilibrium coming back. You know, during the pandemic, you and I both saw ridiculous traffic numbers and engagement on the channels and things, because there was a lot more people predisposed to watching such content because they weren't working the next day, all of these types of things. But now that we are post-pandemic, we need to look pre-pandemic to see the organic curve and see how the dots join up. And if I was to look at those numbers, rather than restarted the OSWAs in the pandemic, I would see something attenuate a little bit. However, I hope that you are proved correct, my friend. Not that it makes a jot of difference to us, because we continue regardless. Danny Hebbington's bought me a dram to say thank you for another Top Thursday, gentlemen. Slancha, Danny, Slancha, right back to you, my friend. Thank you both, Aqvavitae and Ralfy, for your efforts and time spent for the betterment of our entire whiskey curious community. Graham Young in Canada, you superstar. Thank you so much, my friend. It's great to hear that you're back to strong, robust health once more. And my friend, Whiskey with Molly, saying thanks for also looking out for us. Ben, it's great. I'm grateful to have you here looking out for all of us too. I'll raise a glass to you, Ralfy, for everything that you've achieved and the idea of the OSWAs, everything that you continue to bring to our community. I'll raise a glass to everybody that joined us tonight, looking forward to the 5th consecutive OSWAs. That form is live right now. Let's start harvesting the information up front. Let's get you all invested up front, and let's go out to the community henceforth. And Ralfy and I will be back here on Saturday, the 20th of September at 6 p.m. to just share what the nominations are. Yeah. How much we've been able to influence that, I have no idea. If it's like any other year, very, very little. We'll
Probably.
do our very best.
And I raise a glass to you, Roy, because you're the guy that pushes the buttons and pulls the levers.
Thank you so much. Here's to another year of
Yeah.
pushing and pulling in some pals to help with that as well.
Absolutely. It's got to be done.
Cheers, Ralphie. Please stay for the credits to roll at the end, my friend, and we
I'll
can
do that.
say good night. Thank you, sir. Thank you, my friend. It's always very nice for me to spend a bit of time here with Ralphie and just kind of talk about all of these. Ralphie and I always try to have these wee sessions together to work out things, the OSWAs, or have a wee chat about whatever's going on, and we always digress. And I always feel like the chats that we have while we digress would be wonderful content, exactly the type of stuff that people want to tune in and hear. So it's nice for me to be able to get a session tonight and to maybe give some people a wee glimpse of that. I've got an empty glass. I'm going to pour something into the glass. What can I have? Remember that wee Bladnock that I picked up for a bargain price? Let's put it in a clean glass, shall we? Last week on the vPub. It's been sitting here on the side ever since. I'll pour the second dram out of that so that I can have a wee sip with Ralphie. Post credits, but also raise a glass to all of you that hung out with us tonight. A very, very busy vPub, busy chat as well. Absolutely loved it. I'll be back here, of course, for a much more quieter, probably a solo session next week. I hope that's okay with everyone. But in the meantime, I'll meet all my patrons for a lock-in, a quiet private session, a vPub lock-in for patrons only on Sunday evening. Lot to catch up on, believe me. Looking forward to that. But more than anything, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you next Thursday. But until then, I'll raise a glass. Thank you all and remind you all that you're very dearly loved. I'll see you next week. Slanjava, everyone. Cheers.